going on, everybody? Welcome back in, and welcome to the finale of my Higurashi Tatarigoroshi playthrough. It's been a journey, a long one, a wild one, a crazy one, an emotional one, but I'm excited to finish it up alongside all you guys. Before we get started, though, you know the YouTube rules. Like, comment, subscribe. It's important. Now let's get to it. At first, I thought it was a dream. Oh, it's all black and white. That's creepy. I was staring at the strange sheet, not really understanding what it was. That was all. I didn't go after it, nor did I ridicule it. The fact was that the boring view was the ceiling of my own room, but I didn't realize that for a fairly long time. Yes, I thought I had been dreaming. I'd actually been staring at the ceiling the whole time. Oof. Lethargy induced by the voices of the cicadas. Even after I realized I was awake, I couldn't draw forth the energy to sit up. Everything I could see, everything I could hear, everything was like a television broadcast that had already ended. It was hot. So hot I could choke on the heat. My back was moist with night sweats. Oh, night sweats are the worst, man. I hate those. Ugh. I like to sleep when it's like blizzard conditions, icy cold. Unable to endure it any longer, I tossed my futon, and finally, blood started coursing through my brain. I thought that was going to be something completely different. I'm like, bro, you bleeding? What you do? I lazily recalled the long day I had yesterday. The reality, as I lay here listening to the voices of the cicadas, and yesterday so different from it. In order to kill Sato's uncle, I had rehearsed, formulated a plan, and dug a hole. It was very hot, and I was tired, wasn't I? And when evening came, I went to school and called him out on the phone. I panicked for a moment when he asked where the police station was, but it worked out. Did it, though? Like, it worked out in a sense. Not the sense you think, but I guess it worked out. Then I weighted him and swooped down. I couldn't remember anymore what sort of emotions I'd let control my body. In any case, it didn't go smoothly, but I did it. It was very hard to dig the hole for the body. That feel of the rain pelting down on me, I don't think I'll ever forget it. The rain, the mud, and the sprays of blood. That kind of rhymes. The sensation of floundering in a swamp. When I met Takano-san on the way home, that wasn't good, no matter how I interpreted it. It was the most misfortunate and uncalculated thing that had happened that night. Everything would have been perfect, if only I hadn't encountered her. Ha. I was just riding my bike with my shovel in one hand through the downpour, utterly soaked. There was no way someone could surmise I was a murderer bearing a body just from that information. I mean, what else are you doing out there, man? Like, it's pouring rain, you're walking your bike, you got a shovel. It's sus no matter what way you look at it. Now that I was thinking calmly, napping under the morning sun, that's what I thought. Still, the more I think about Takano-san's eyes, it seemed like she understood. Takano-san, she knew that I'd killed someone and buried them, and that I'd been on my way home, exhausted. Takano-san wouldn't gain anything from selling me out to the police. That didn't mean I could feel at ease. Probably wouldn't have been a good idea. I'd crossed such a bridge to get my tranquil life back, and I'd finally achieved it as a result. But now, for the rest of my life, for all the tranquil days starting today, I'd have to live in fear of when they could suddenly end. I may have twisted my ankle, dulled from total exhaustion. The fact that I couldn't make the snap judgment I needed to, I regretted it more and more as time went on. You didn't have a choice, Keiichi Maebara. You didn't have any choice at the time. You were tired. You were a mess. Even if you had made the decision, you might not have been able to kill her. She might have just beaten you instead. She probably would have, dude. Like, you were, like, done. You were out for the count, bro. In that sense, parting ways uneventfully could have been the safer option. No matter how sharp Takano-san's intuition was, she had no proof. Her suspecting me didn't amount to evidence by itself.
理屈じゃわかってるさ。でも、だからって何の心配もないってわけじゃないだろう。
Just worry about it when the time comes. Ooh, alright, we got some chill music going, alright. Now isn't the time to be worrying. It's time to be smiling, right? Yeah, dude, just, you know, did some light moida. Smile the next morning. Why not? That's not crazy at all. You accomplished so much just to gain a new life starting today, didn't you? Then you should be happy at this new morning. If remembering the past is too hard for you, then just consider everything up to yesterday as having never happened. You said so yourself. You'd bury it all like it never happened. Well, your wish came true. Everything before yesterday never happened. So be happy, Kichimaibara.
Why?
That sounded so happy. I stuck up my hands lazily. It felt a little silly for me to be the one doing it. I heaved a sigh from deep inside my belly. That sigh got my lungs moving. It felt like I hadn't been breathing until just now. It wasn't enough to admonish myself over. All the dice that could be thrown already had been. And the numbers that turned up weren't bad at all. If I lost those numbers, then I just have to give up, I guess. I grabbed the chest of my pajamas and flapped it back and forth. Cool air flowed over my sweating body. Okay. Nothing before yesterday happened. Nothing. Nothing at all. I'd forget it all. Yesterday was all a dream. What time was it? About midday? Getting myself up and going to school this late seemed kind of absurd, but I needed to go. Felt like going to school would be the first step into my peaceful new life. I didn't care how late it was, I would go. I'd go to school right now and get back to the life I had retaken as soon as I could. My lazy body immediately became lighter at the thought. I rolled up out of the futon, bounced onto my knees, then leapt upright.
10.0
Stuck out my chest with pride at the gymnast-like pose, then took a deep breath of fresh air. My dude, your ankle's twisted, like you shouldn't be doing gymnast things. The brisk morning air had been gone for a while, replaced by the crisp air of summer. Downstairs, I got stern talking to by my mother. Where were you last night? When did you get back? You need to tell me when you won't be home for dinner, things like that. But considering the importance of what I had accomplished yesterday, a little scolding was no problem. In fact, it even felt like the sort of thing that would happen in such a peaceful life. I listened with an irresponsible smile and stepped out into the sun high overhead. It was around the time lunch break would be ending. Everyone would probably be worrying about me. I didn't go to the festival and now I wasn't at school. Well, maybe they weren't too worried about it. Since they would have gotten a small piece of news, but a happy one, from Satsuko today. Yes, a small piece of news that her uncle hadn't come home last night. Satsuko would probably live her days in nervous tension for a while, thinking he might still come home. But eventually those days would end. And finally Satsuko too would realize her uncle was never coming back. And then Rika-chan would quietly invite her. She would say, "You can live with me again." And everything would be back to normal. Our lives would go back to how they were before that man appeared. Satsuko would start wearing that extraordinary smile, complete with those protruding canines, and fool everyone with those traps she was so proud of. I'd probably be her first target out of everyone, but I wouldn't be mad. In fact, I actually said cheers of joy at the return of something so normal. Satsuko, she'd gradually grow back into that meddlesome personality of hers. I mean, my lack of useful life skills was already completely exposed. I wondered if I'd ever be a match for Satsuko. But that would be such a pleasant thing to see, too. And with such warm, fuzzy predictions, I didn't feel bad for going to school so late. In fact, I wanted to run there now to get there as soon as I could. Instead, I decided to savor the peacefulness of just going to school like normal, without running. The world I'd obtained for myself, that gave me joy just by walking like this. Yes, the world beginning on this very day was something I had won. Without that monumental feat yesterday, I would never have been able to come to school so cheerful today. The school gate came into sight. Just then I heard the principal ringing the bell to mark the end of lunch break. It was a clear, refreshing sound. I stopped despite myself and let myself take it in. Tap. I had stopped suddenly. So there was an extra footstep. Oh, that's creepy. No, now I got the creep music. With a noise, the blessedness I was feeling throughout my whole body withdrew into any pore it could find. And as if to replace it, I felt like hundreds of hairy caterpillars were climbing up my feet. I turned back, but of course nobody was there. A single footstep could have easily been my imagination. But the footstep felt so ominous. That extra footstep I had heard after seeing Takano-san off last night. Everything that happened on that insane night, I didn't mind something like that happening once. It had been a hell of a night after all. In fact, having just one hallucination was pretty fortunate. Just one minor hallucination is okay. God. Oh, that's crazy. But those footsteps should have ended with yesterday, so if I heard them again today, there was really only one thing it could have meant. Last night still wasn't over. It was still going. Still. That insane night. Forever. The step I heard. Just that one extra footstep was quietly ridiculing the nonsensical notion. that the world starting today was completely different from the one that ended yesterday. My classmates playing in the schoolyard all vanished inside like the tide going out. When I approached the school, it felt like that warm, fuzzy scene had ended, and it didn't feel good. At the entrance, I took a quick look in everyone's shoeboxes. Satsuko Hojo, she was here. Mion was here too, and Rena, of course. Even Rika-chan was here. Tomita-kun and Ukumura-kun were here. In fact, I didn't see any missing classmates. There were shoes missing. They would have to be my own. I took my shoes off and stuck them in, then took out some slippers. There wasn't a single pair left in the shoeboxes anymore. With that, they returned to their rightful state. But as I stepped up onto the wooden floor, I noticed there was just one pair of slippers left. Huh.
Hojo Satoshi.
Your boy. Satoshi, who had never been to school since disappearing last year. Until now, we had committed the same act of violence. But I guess in the very end, it went differently. You could make it to school, but here I am. I didn't repeat the same mistake you made. I wasn't about to let myself feel superior about that. In fact, I felt an odd sense of familiarity with him, a misfortunate bond with someone I'd never met due to following the same fate. I headed down the hallway towards the usual classroom. It felt like it had been a whole year since coming here. Hey, did you forget Keiichi Maibara? Why does the music gotta be creepy? Satoshi Hojo didn't really disappear on the night of Otanagashi, did he? Satoshi Hojo disappeared a few days later. On Satsuko's birthday, if I was right. I didn't know what day it was, but I couldn't say for sure I'd avoided Satoshi's failure, unless I remained here past that day. I was still living in that night of insanity. The teacher still hadn't come to the classroom. The air door clattered open, the one the teacher wouldn't use, so everyone turned at once to see who had arrived. Everyone looked pretty vacant. Suppose I'll greet them.
Ohayo, Shokun.
That sounds fake.
出迎えご苦労であるぞよ。
God. Silence. When I started to think I'd fallen flat, someone finally started laughing for me. Good old Mion being a bro.
おはよう、ケイちゃん。今朝も飛ばしてるね。飛ばしてるね。ケイチくん、まだお祭り気分が抜けてないのかもしれない。
Hearing Mion and Ren's cheerful voices made me realize how dumb those dark feelings I'd been having at the entrance really were.
おいおい、お祭り気分って、そもそも俺。
At the festival at all, remember? Before I could say that, Rika-chan smiled at me.
ケイチはちゃんと僕の演舞見ててくれましたですか？ちゃんと見てたよ。あんなにいっぱい拍手してくれてたのに、リカちゃん気づかなかったのかな？
What the hell is going on?
ケイちゃんにシオンのやつがちょっかい出してきたのを無視してね。シオン、ざまあなかった。
Alright, either there is something else going on right now, or they all know what he did, or assume what he did, so they're trying to cover for him. I don't know, man. Either way, I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
いい気分。
Mion starts laughing at the memory as she slaps me a few times on the back.
それで、あの射的屋の対決って結局どうなったんですか？
Are you all in? Dude, out. Tomita-kun was facing me and talking. There was nobody behind me. That meant he was talking to me.
あれは結局、富田家がビリだったのですよ。
Ha, nerd.
みんなで楽しく罰ゲームをしましたです。リカちゃんも実質ビリみたいなもんだったじゃない。あそこで起死回生の大技でガムをゲットとは、さすがは我が部の部員。
My dude looks so tired. Crying at a time like that is a feat only Furude would be allowed to do. Okumura-kun breathing heavily from his nose. Ugh. In my direction. Everyone laughed. If anyone but Rika-chan had done it, it would have been against the rules. Rika-chan gave one of her Nipah smiles as she listened to it. In my direction. Rena, too, turned to me. No, turned towards me. And then with a somewhat embarrassed smile, she whispered to me so only I could hear.
でも、本当に、あれ、ケイチ君。
Yo, they straight up know what he did. They have to know what he did.
もう、何がだよ。
あのでっかいぬいぐるみ。
Oh. No, that was something completely different. Oh. What the? Bro.
すっごく嬉しかった。大事に枕元に置いてるんだよ。ちゃんと寝る前にお休みのキスしちゃった。は
Class laughed at that, cheering and jeering. This whole time, conversation had been a little bit off. Wasn't quite getting it. Yeah, dude, like, I don't know. I even know, like, the plot to this whole thing, and I don't know what's going on, right?
ぬいぐるみが、どうしたって？
どうしたって、昨日のお祭りでみんなで頑張って落としたよ。でっかいぬいぐるみ。でっかいぬいぐるみ。
Why'd you say it so slow and creepy? Rena seemed taken back, but when she answered, she did it with a smile.
なかなか倒せないから額を狙ったり素早く何発も撃ったりしていろいろと試したんだよね。それでケイチ君鉄砲を何丁もあらかじめ用意して素早く撃ってみせてくれたんだよね。
This kind of sounds like what happened another time they were at the festival. I don't think they could be remembering that by mistake, like a different thing that happened. I don't think that's happening. But I do need to know what's happening. Wait, who was this?
あの後の飲み会でさ、町内会の会長連中にもケイちゃんの評判すごく良かったんだよ。ケイちゃんの売り工場に惚れたって騒いでたのは子供会の君吉徳蔵会長だったかな。次の祭りではぜひケイちゃんに何店舗か任せたいって言ってた。徳蔵はお祭りの実行委員会の模擬店部長さんなのです。
Myber-san is great at making things sound good, isn't he? Yep, whenever he talks about something, it seems a lot better than it actually is. You can't say that. Oh, this is
売り子
weird.
さんの才能があるんだね。きっとバナナの叩き売りとかやったら上手だと思うよ。
For a banana. Okay,
さっきから何の話だよ。
I get it,
だいた
but
い俺、
it's weird. Didn't go to the festival in the first place. I swallowed those words. I didn't know exactly why, but in Hinamizawa, this is what had happened. Yesterday, during the Watanagashi festival, Heiichi Maibara had appeared, and he had romped about with all the usual members of his club. He made a big scene at a few of the stalls, snatched a few sticks of takoyaki and okonomiyaki in his glee. I never heard that before. Rating each of them as delicious or terrible to get everyone excited. And they'd seen a gigantic stuffed animal at the target practice game, and everyone went after it. And then I got a whole bunch of the cork guns, fired them in rapid succession, throwing each one away after using it. And admirably, I shot down the biggest stuffed animal there. And then I gave the stuffed animal the proof of my victory to Rena as a gift. Then our fun came to a close, and we had to go see Rika-chan's offertory dance. There was a ton of people squeezed in there, and we all got separated, but we each managed to get into good positions to cheer Rika-chan on from. Then, in the middle, when Shion came up and asked me to go hang out with her instead of watching the dedication dance, I refused, and stayed put, watching the dance until the very end. But who? Who was that? I'm asking the same questions. Well, everyone's been saying it, haven't they? Keiichi Maibara. I had an urge to yell in anger at my classmates for having so much fun talking about the festival yesterday with Keiichi Maibara. What the hell are you guys even talking about? Far stronger than that feeling, though, was the sheer uncanny nature of this reality I couldn't understand. A Keiichi Maibara who wasn't me was in Hinamizawa yesterday, as I threw away my humanity, turned into a demon, and was busy beating Satoru's uncle to death. I was having a great time at the festival last night. What the hell? I had to suffer through so much, desperately holding back tears, getting so worn out in that downpour, Digging holes, chasing, beating, killing, dragging, and burying. Who was this Keiichi Maibara who had ignored me so and spent such a fun, carefree time at the festival? Damn it. Who the hell stood in for me as I put my life on line working so hard to achieve this treasure-like everyday life? If there was another Keiichi Maibara besides me, then what was I? On the night of Watanagashi, where one died and one disappeared, in accordance with Oyashiro-Sama's curse, there was only a demon who had killed someone. Dumbfounded, as I succumbed to a horrifying possibility, I looked around at my classmates. To make sure there was nobody extra I didn't recognize among them. To make sure I wasn't among them. Bro, how crazy it would be like if he saw himself just sitting there, like, I'd be like, bro, that's some weird stuff, my dude. It was a horrifying thought. That the real Keiichi Maibara hadn't overslept and had come to school on time. And that I, who was no longer Keiichi Maibara, had just waltzed in there. But no matter how much I checked, the only people here were the ones I knew. The man I met every time I looked in a bathroom mirror was not here. Odd way to describe it, but I get what you're saying. Yo, what's up, girl?
午後の授業を始めますよ。皆さん、席に戻ってください。委員長、号令。
Teacher entered and everyone hurried back to their seats. Upon finding me, who was so stupidly late, she gave me a stern talking to, but I wasn't listening to it. That's a mood. Wasn't our old life supposed to start today? Something wasn't right. It was just strange. I was supposed to go back to my old, fun life after yesterday. I'd set foot in an uncomparably mysterious world that was completely different from both my old life and my recent one. Yes, this was without a doubt a different world than the one I'd been living in until now. There was no way such an absurd thing could be possible. But unless it was true, I couldn't explain anything that just happened. In this classroom, I was surrounded by so many faces I knew, and yet I felt isolated. The cicadas sounded no different than they had before now, but they seemed somehow false. The air was parched and dry too, making me think, was the air in Hinamizawa always this uncomfortable? As bright.
おい、レナ。
何かな？授業中なんだよ。
昨日の祭りだけどさ、俺、いつ頃みんなと合流したっけ？
To be honest, I was pretty excited afterwards, and I gobbled down some cans of beer. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing, but I don't quite remember some things. For random babbling, it wasn't a bad excuse.
ケイチ君、最初は来れないって言ってたんだよね。みーちゃんの家にそう電話したんでしょ？
Right. That matched. I called Mion and told her to take Satsuko in my place, since I wouldn't be able to meet up with them due to things I had to do. That wasn't Mion, though. That was 100% Shion.
さとこちゃんを誘ってあげようっていうのは、みんなでお祭りの準備をしてた時に決めたんだよ。少しでもおじさんの姿の見えないところに連れ出してあげようと思って。
That was the same too. Mion said that when I called her, that everyone had already decided to invite her.
それでみんなでレナとみーちゃんとリカちゃんでさとこちゃんの家に行ってさとこちゃんを連れ出して。さとこちゃんのおじさん、すっごく意地悪そうな人だった。
That part didn't matter. What I was trying to ask
俺は
was...
いつ合流したんだ？
そんなことも忘れちゃってるの？ケイチ君、だから祭りの前の日はよく寝た方がいいよって言ったのに。
だから俺はいつ合流したんだよ。
At my sudden threatening demand, Rena was at a loss for words. So I shouldn't have rushed that. I told her I was sorry. Oh, just
境
disappeared.
内でだよ。ひょっこりとリカちゃんと話してたじゃない。巫女さん姿のリカちゃんと楽しそうに話してた。それでレナも加わって「はうお持ち帰り」って。
リカちゃんと話してたのか？
ケイちゃん、用事か何かがあったんじゃないって私が聞いたらさ、ケイちゃん胸を叩きながら自分で言ったじゃないのよ。用事なんかより祭りで大暴れする方が大切だぜって。
I didn't say that. They're totally... They've got to be covering for him, man. Like, they've got to be covering for him and making up, like, this whole story that he was actually there. I never said anything like that. I never even went to the shrine grounds yesterday to begin with. I never had the time to stop by a place like that. I went to dig the hole as soon as I woke up. I had a pretty hard time doing it. After that, I snuck into school and made a call. I called him out and lay in wait, and then it started raining really hard. With that kind of downpour, the festival should have come to a halt. In other words, it ended then. From the time the festival started to when it ended, it would have been impossible for me to have swung by the shrine grounds. I was already there when Mion and the others dragged Satsuko out and brought her to the shrine, and I was talking to Rika-chan. Then where would Rika-chan say we met? The teacher went out to wash her hands, so I ran over to Rika-chan's desk and asked her directly.
圭一とですか？
ああ、リカちゃんはミオンたちが来る前から俺と話してたんだろ。いつ俺に会ったんだ？いつどこでだよ。
圭一が何を聞きたいのかわからないのです。
俺昨日寝不足で半分頭がぼーっとなっててさ、何も覚えてないんだよ。
Looked like Rika-chan bought into my babbling.
圭一と会ったのは集会所から村長さんたちと出てきた時なのです。圭一は西宮殿の扉の前にいましたのですよ。
え、何？西宮殿？
I'd never heard a building called that before. Or maybe I have, but at the very least I wouldn't know where on the shrine grounds it was.
村長さんがそこは神聖な場所だからみだりに近寄ってはならにゅうと怒りましたですよ。圭一、それも忘れてしまいましたですか？
I was too scared to ask anymore. The more I asked, the more it became clear without any doubt that Keiichi Maibara was present at the Furude Shrine Grounds during the Watanagashi Festival. The clearer that became, the more doubts, no, fears I had. What on earth was I yesterday? Whoever that was, he had a good time in my place and managed to go the entire day without letting them notice I wasn't there. No, right. When did that person leave everyone? This morning, my mother got mad at me for having stayed out so late last night, which meant at the very least that Keiichi Maibara hadn't come home while my mother was still awake. The festival had been closed because of the downpour. If I recall right, when I went back to the house's storage room to get another shovel, I think the clock said 7. Since it was already raining hard by then, the festival would have had to close down before 7. If I'd returned that early, I would have definitely run to my parents. Or at the very least, they wouldn't have asked me when I got back last night. So the Keiichi Maibara from yesterday, that meant he never went home. That meant downpour happened, the festival was broken up, everyone left. But he didn't go back to the house. That means, I don't know. What does it mean? When I arrived at the natural conclusion, a wicked chill suddenly froze my spine and climbed up to my brain. That meant Keiichi Maibara was the same as Satoshi. One day, he never went home. On the night with Tanagashi, he never went home. The downpour interrupted the festival, and on the way home, he suddenly disappeared. And I, who was dealing with the corpse, went home without a problem. I was so tired I wasn't even hungry, so I went up to my room without a sound and crawled into my futon. Who was I? Man, we're getting some, This is just crazy. That much was obvious. Keiichi Maibara. Keiichi Maibara was me. There may have been another one, but that doesn't negate the fact that I was Keiichi Maibara. Then that other Keiichi Maibara was what? The voices of the cicadas steadily filling the classroom were beginning to bother me. Suddenly, I laid eyes on Satsuko. Yeah, she's been here, and he hasn't said anything to her. Oh. She looks dead to the world still. Sato's expression was dark as always. She seemed completely exhausted, at a life of agony she couldn't even imagine an ending to. What had last night been like for Satsuko? Did she have fun with everyone and feel a little happier, if even for a moment? And when she went home, the end of her dream, she'd probably gone to sleep afraid of when her uncle would return. And then this morning, her uncle hadn't come home. And then she went to school. Right now, she must have still been trapped by the rotten idea from which she couldn't be saved, that her uncle would need her when she got back. But you can rest easy, Satsuko. Your uncle won't ever be coming back. I couldn't tell her it was because I killed him, obvious reasons. When Satsuko realized on her own that her uncle would never return, then that would truly be the end of the long, insane night. That's right. I didn't do anything wrong. You did a little bit wrong. Moira is still bad. I did the best possible thing I could have as Satsuko's Nini. Not an atom in my body regretted it. And look, calm down and think, Keiichi. From a certain point of view, isn't it convenient there was another Keiichi? I buried the corpse perfectly. A beginning wouldn't happen. I'll call back to when he was talking to his mom about the mystery novels. But if worse came to worse and it got out and the investigation got to me, I now had a strong alibi able to profess the fact that I'd been at the Watanagashi festival. But accepting something so creepy and using it as an alibi... Still, if I proved I hadn't gone to the festival yesterday, it would do no good and a whole lot of harm. That was what left the really, actually bad aftertaste. You'll forget about it, Keiichi. Everything that happened before today. So just forget about the Keiichi who was there yesterday too. Instead, let's watch gently over Satsuko for the day her smile returns. And the day that would mark the end of that insane, all too long night.
それでは今日はこれで終わりです。皆さん、寄り道をしないでちゃんとお家へ帰るんですよ。委員長、号令。起立。
Goodbye. Everybody's like, ow. Thought about many things and saw my thoughts dispersed by many other things. I didn't know whether or not that time had been spent worrying or daydreaming, but either way, it came to an end along with the class. Cheerfully, our classmates got their things and ran for the hallway. Mion, Ren, and Rika-chan were picking up as well. What about Satsuko? This whole day, she seemed deflated. Well, her uncle may not have returned last night, but she wouldn't have known he'd never return. How much I wanted to express that fact to her. Satsuko packed up her pencil box and math workbook messily, and after a dark glance at the clock, heaved a sigh, then went to leave the classroom. Then, suddenly, somebody placed a hand on her shoulder and stopped her. Whom?
何ですの？私、ちゃんと水やり当番もやりましたし、プリントだってちゃんと。
Her words, possessed by a persecution complex, hurt. I spoke loudly so everyone could
なあ
hear.
みんな、さ、今日は久しぶりにやらないか。
Oh, it was Keiichi's hand who stopped her, okay.
部活。
Satsuko always had to tend to her uncle, so club has been on hiatus. In our minds, our club was proof of a calm, peaceful life. By enjoying being together, I wanted to make Satsuko realize her days of darkness were over.
レナは、いいよ。
そりゃまあ私は構わないけど、聡子がいいならね。
Under a condition. That was important. With everything up to her, Satsuko gave a worried look.
なあ、聡子。久々にどうだよ。パーッとさ。
お気持ちは嬉しいでございますけど。
My uncle might already be home. Thus spoke her darkened eyes, her mouth unmoving.
聡子もさ、連日息が詰まるような生活をずっと続けててさ、そんなのは心にも体にも悪いだけだぜ。やっぱりたまにはパーッと弾けなきゃな。
放っておいてくださいまし。私だってそりゃ部活がまたやれたらと思っていますわよ。
With one word, but she looked down.
みんなで遊んだ方が楽しいのは聡子だってよく知ってるだろ。俺たちは仲間だぜ。みんなで一緒に過ごすようにできてるんだよ。聡子だって昨日みんなでお祭りで騒いで楽しかったろ。
Rena nearly said something, but she was too late.
ケイチさん、何を言ってますの？
My arm on her shoulder seemed to weigh her down, and she threw it off.
私がお祭りで楽しく、いつ遊んだって言うんですの？楽しく遊んだのはケイチさんだけじゃありませんの。
What is going on, man? I looked over to Mion for help, but now everyone was looking down. My instincts told me that Satsuko hadn't gone to the festival. Then where was she then? But Rena said it herself, that she went with Mion to Satsuko's house to invite her.
さとこちゃん、途中で帰っちゃったの。神社には行かなかった。
Oh, shit.
どうして？
I realized the absurdity of what I just said with Satsuko in front of me.
おじが家で待ってるのに一人だけ遊んでると悪いって言って、神社の直前で。
私たちも引き止めたんだよ。今日はおじさん公認だからちゃんと遊んでも怒られないんだよって。
At some point, tears began welling up at Satsuko's eyes. Satsuko was so afraid of her uncle that she couldn't even allow herself time with her friends and went home. No, she was even afraid of letting herself have a good time with her friends.
圭一さんはいいですわね。みんなで楽しくお祭り一夜を過ごせて、聞けば大層盛り上がって大活躍だったそうじゃないですの。お羨ましいことですわ。
Smiling to herself, her tears began to fall. Oh, no, it looks so sad.
養わなければならない叔父がいますの。圭一さんみたいにご両親にのんびり養ってもらってる人とはわけが違いますですのよ。
さとこ。
楽しくお祭りが過ごせてよかったですわね。私の分まで楽しく過ごせて本当におよろしかったですこと。私だって部活がしたいですわ。みんなで楽しく大騒ぎして楽しくて楽しくて。でも今の私、そんなの
Unable to withstand such violent emotion, a few teardrops slid down her cheek. But even though she was having such a terrible time, not once did she ever say that was hard for her. It was a sad, obstinate bravery. But the days when Satsuko had to feel like that were over. Satsuko didn't need to endure it, to bear it anymore. She could forget all about it now and smile. I was so frustrated not being able to tell her that directly. Instead, I said something that I'm not sure I should have said before I thought twice about
帰っ
it.
てこないんだろ、あいつは。
The words were deeply meaningful to me, but I didn't know if Satsuko understood them.
帰ってこないって誰がですの？
ゆうべは帰らなかったんだろ、お前のお家は。
何を言ってますの、圭一さんは。
Satsuko shouted with all her might.
あいつがいついなくなったって言うんですの？いつ？
Maybe when he's buried a couple feet underground?
落ち着けよ。だって昨日あいつは帰ってこなかったろ。
圭一さんが何を言ってるのか全然わかりませんでしたよ。
さとここそ何を言ってんだよ。だってあの男は。
I killed him. Killed him yesterday. Well, for sure. And I buried him. Buried him whole. He could never have returned to his house.
昨日だって私にいっぱい意地悪して怒鳴ってわめいて当たり散らして作ったご飯を投げられた。お味噌汁もひっくり返された。暑かった、汚かった、そしてお掃除も私がした。私が
I'm both super sad right now and super confused. Oh. That's like reality shattering. That was cool. What? Our stories weren't matching up.
あいつ
今朝だって朝ごはんの時起こせって言われたから起こしたのに怒られた。起こさなかったらまた怒るように起こしても怒られた。
さとこ。
Oh. Just the way she appeared there was creepy. Rikishan went over to Satsuko and said a few words of consolation. But Satsuko angrily refused those words and thrust Rikichan away.
にーにー早く帰ってきてよ。
Crying, Satsuko slowly walked out into the hallway. After a moment, Rikichan went after her. I couldn't stop thinking about the words Satsuko had spoken while crying. I buried her uncle last night, but she said this morning that was impossible. I buried him last night, so she couldn't have seen her uncle this morning. What was Satsuko? What's going on, man? At that point, I heard Mion's cold voice.
ねえケイちゃん、
She's gonna be like, "What the hell's wrong with you, bro?"
さとこのおじさんが帰ってこないって何？
Gulp. I said too much. I let my emotions get the better of me.
レナも聞いたよ。さとこちゃんのおじさんが帰ってこないって言った。
どうして？なんで帰ってこないの？
おかしいよね。
They know. They have to know. But what is she talking about, though? Like, he's not there.
だって今朝もちゃんとさとこちゃんのおじさんはいるんだよ。なのになんで帰ってこないなんて言うのかな。
I don't like while they're smiling during this.
ケイちゃん、言ってることがさっきから変。
Suddenly, Mian and Rena started to speak in strange and creepy voices. What were they doing? What were they saying?
ケイちゃんは
Nope.
さとこのおじさんがいると何か都合が悪いことでもあるわけ？
I don't like it.
お前らこそさとこのおじなんかいない方がいいに決まってるだろうが。
Yeah, you'd think that'd be better for everybody. Oh, no. Rena's got the creepy eyes, too.
それはもちろんいない方がいいよね。よね。
Why? Why is this going on? Something wasn't right. The next thing I knew, Mian and Rena were smiling thinly, and their eyes were dark and muddy in a way that I'd never seen before. And as our eyes met, that mud even seemed to fill the air.
さとこのおじは確かに嫌なやつだよね。私もいなくなった方がいいやつだと思うよ。でもさ、仕方ないじゃない。
What the hell is going on? Nothing we can do. Something's wrong. Something's clearly wrong here. What the hell is happening? After a moment, a chilly, liquid-like feeling, as though my blood had been mixed with sherbet, crawled up my spine. Ooh. That's an interesting way to describe that. Ooh.
仕方ないって。そりゃでもそれじゃさとこが。
仕方がなければ
Okay, your eyes
どう
changed.
す
We're
る
good.
のかな。
We're good. Everything's back to normal. We're chill. Erg. Rhino was trying to prompt me to say more. There really was no choice, so I killed him. I killed him to protect Satsuko.
それは
放っておきなよ。そのうち解決しちゃうと思うしさ。
さとこちゃんがおじさんがいるって言ってるんだからいる。ちゃんと昨日もいたし今朝もいる。そうならそうでいいんじゃないかな。
The way she's wording it, she's very specific that Satsuko said her uncle was here, so then he's here. She might just be imagining he's here, and they're just kind of like going along with it to not, break her mentally more than she already is. Mian and Rena were speaking unbelievably dismissively. How could they be talking like that? Mian and Rena, they were my friends, and were seriously worried about Satsuko's abuse, weren't they? They would never blurt out something like this. And I definitely killed Satsuko's uncle. Like, that definitely happened. No matter what Satsuko or anyone else says, I wouldn't acknowledge it because him being alive was impossible. There's no way he was alive. It was impossible. And yet, since Satsuko herself said he was here, then he was alive. I didn't know why or how, but suddenly Mian and Rena were at my side, standing there silently.
帰ろうよ、ケイちゃん。
帰ったらね、今日は久しぶりにレナ宝探しに行くつもりなんだ。みーちゃんも来るんだよ。
ケイちゃんも一緒に行こう。もちろん拒否権はないからね。
Alright. If words could freeze blood, then there was no doubt that they would have frozen me solid. I could hear it, a strange sound like a layer of thin ice spreading, emanating from every joint in my body. And with them closely at my sides, we left the school as if they were police officers taking me away. They talked about silly things the entire way home, like they always did, but they always stood at my sides, as if to prevent me from escaping. This was strange. Everything about this day was strange. Actually, it had been strange ever since the previous night. Yes, thinking back, it had been strange ever since killing Satsuko's uncle. Clearly. That creepy meeting with Takuno-san was only the beginning. That insane night was still continuing. Yes, it still hadn't ended.
何？どうしたのケイちゃん。急に立ち止まったりして。
ごめん。なんでもないよ。
When I stopped, it was distant, but I definitely heard them. An extra set of footsteps, bro. You still hear them. Come on, man. That was proof. Proof that insane night hadn't ended. Mion left where she usually did, and finally we came to my house.
じゃあね、ケイチくん。お家で待っててね。レナ、すぐに迎えに行くから。
What was it? She was inviting me along on one of her oversized garbage treasure hunts at the dam site, right? But why now? Mion coming along was strange, too. Mion may have accepted Rena's little hobby, but she hated fishing through garbage, so she'd never come with her before. And the location specifically being the dam site was a little creepy. That dam construction site was completely outside the flow of everyday life. It was so remote that no one ever went there unless they thought to in particular. Nobody lived there, and there were no lights, so at night it got dark very quickly. I was being forcibly invited there. There was no reason I had to fear Rena and Mion. Well, that's a good mentality, compared to the first chapter. Besides, wouldn't the trouble I'd make by refusing them be a pain to deal with? In that way, it didn't seem going treasure hunting with them was a bad idea. But that insane night was continuing. Haven't the sirens of instinct been wailing in my mind for a while now, warning me that Rena and Mion were strange, that I needed to be cautious. The warning sirens were so freaking loud, it felt like my head would split in two.
あ、レナ、俺、実はちょっと用事があるんだ。
They kind of said you couldn't refuse, bro. You're kind of stuck.
用事？何の？
なんのって、用事だよ、用事。
用事なら、なんでみーちゃんがいるうちに言ってくれなかったの？みーちゃんとはダム現場で待ち合わせって言って別れちゃった後なのに。
Ren was smiling, but her words made her discomfort clear.
ごめん、ちょっと言い出すタイミングを逃しちゃって。
He's being so sus right now. They all are. You're lying, aren't you? You just made that up now, you liar. That's what Rena's eyes said to me.
俺、頭が痛いんだ。風邪かもしれない。だから病院に行って薬をもらってきたいんだよ。
Right.
本
Oh,
当
no,
に。
creepy eyes. That wasn't really a lie. My head did hurt a little bit. So I wasn't lying. You're still lying. You're just not 100% lying. It's still lying. Rena, she couldn't figure out if my head hurt or not just by looking at it.
なら仕方ないね。
After staring at me in the eyes for a few moments, she fired a sharp needle-like stare at me. The tension in my body loosened and I felt like my knees might buckle.
診療所に行くなら早く行った方がいいと思うよ。あそこたまに早く閉まるから。
ありがとう。そうするよ。
必ず行くんだよ。病院。
行くよ。
本当に行くんだよ。
行く。
That's very threatening. It seemed like Rena had realized I was going to refuse her invitation for a while now. How serious she looks. She might actually call the clinic later to make sure I went. I couldn't say anything careless. Lying about getting checked out was just an excuse to decline her request in the first place. It didn't matter whether I actually went.
あ、ちゃんと行くよ。なんなら明日病院のレシートを持って行ってもいい。
それいいね。
Alright.
必ずもらっておいてね。
She's like, I'm calling you out on your BS, bro.
レナ、明日見るから。
Another tingle started crawling up my back. There was no ignoring it. Ren and Mion must have been monitoring my movements. This wasn't normal. Far from it. All of it was insane. I did what I did because I wanted my peaceful life back. But what on earth was all this? It was far from peaceful. Something had gone mad, leaving the world out of order. With the other Keiichi Maibara. With those creepy footsteps I've been hearing. With Ren and Mion acting so curious. And above all, with him being alive. Where was I? Hinamizawa village, Shishibune. I knew that much. Was this really the Hinamizawa I knew?
おい、前原圭一。ここはどこなんだ？
I asked, whipping around before the front door to face the one who has been following in my wake all day. Nobody would have been there, of course. Keiichi Maibara, huh? That's why I just called him. Called the one who had been trailing behind me this whole time. That shadowy presence always clinging to me, like it was constantly watching for the opportunity to change places. Footsteps always following me was another impossibility. It couldn't have been a ghost, so it was just impossible. So the strangeness must have been my ears, my head, or Hinamizawa. Everything I could see was the same exact Hinamizawa I knew so well, and that gave me the creeps. Eventually, I decided to actually go to the clinic. Smart. They would have known. I really didn't want to go outside, but a stronger feeling than that desire was the fear Rena might actually be keeping an eye on me to see if I went to the hospital. She probably is. They probably absolutely are. But before I went to the clinic, there was something I wanted to make sure of. It was at school. I pretended I'd forgotten something, and was going back to the classroom to pick it up. As soon as the thought crossed my mind, I was overwhelmed by paranoia. I was just going to the classroom, but I hated it so much having to be so careful to fake it. After carefully verifying once more that nobody was watching, I went over to the locker. I'm guessing he's checking if Satoshi's bat is there. Yes, Satoshi's locker, yep. I committed the crime with the bat I found in this locker, Satoshi's bat. And then I had thrown the bat into the swamp. Which meant the bat shouldn't have been inside. But, what if the bat was still in here? It's a very dreadful, incomprehensible idea, but if it was true, it would explain a lot. If the bat was in here, yesterday's events would have all been a delusion. No, an illusion. I hadn't killed anyone, and I'd gone to the festival. I had a great time rampaging about with everyone. It would prove that Keiichi Maibara was really me. Proof that I was only under some strange assumption that I killed Sato's uncle. Proof that it had all been a wild fantasy. That would explain everything. Nothing happened yesterday. I had just gone mad, unable to separate my shocking uncle-killing dream from reality. That would explain everything. If the bat was here, would I be able to accept that reality? If it was here, nothing would have changed. If it was here, it would just mean I'd gone crazy. Just a little bit. It's a little crazy. Preparing myself for the worst, I opened the locker door. I was actually scared of opening it slowly, so I threw it open with a bang. And just like the first time, choking scent of smell and sweat like a stale towel came flowing out. There was a baseball uniform and some miscellaneous other things like notebooks. There was also a shoe pouch. And as for the bat, it wasn't here. It's how I left it when I took the bat out. There was no doubt, yesterday really happened. Now that I knew I wasn't a lunatic, I felt relieved. Like, oh yeah, I'm actually a Moira. I feel a lot relieved now. At the same time, if I wasn't the crazy one, then Hinamizawa was, and that was evidence of a reality I found just as difficult to accept. There was noise somehow creeping into everything I saw, and the world was losing a tiny bit of color. So what did I know about last night now? Now that I'd made sure the bat wasn't there, I didn't need to be here anymore. Shall I go? For real, to the hospital? Yes, you should, because they will find out. It was my first time going to the hospital, but from what I'd heard, it wasn't far from school. My mom told me where it was. A big, easy-to-see road went straight there. I went past the shopping street, made a turn, and boom, doctor's office. It wasn't overly hard to spot the sign with Erie Clinic written on it. Oh, look at the little alligator on the desk. I like that. It's adorable. There's one other person, an older man, there in the air-conditioned waiting room. I went up to the counter and told him it was my first time here. The man behind the counter glanced at the clock and said there would be a short wait. It was almost 5. Clinic hours would be ending soon. As I sat in this unfamiliar waiting room, isolated from everyone, and let myself feel the cool air, I actually felt relieved. What should I tell the doctor when he comes? I tell him I had a cold, but I was the very picture of health. Actually, I wanted him to check my head. I wanted someone to confirm for me whether I was really sane or not.
Maebara Keiichi-san.
Yo, what up, Dr. Erie?
診察室へお入りください。
That's my boy. Huh? The voice from the other side of the examination curtain. I thought I'd heard it somewhere before.
こんにちは。
Yo, look at him now. He's got his fancy doctor's outfit on.
ここでお会いするのは初めてですね。
監督ってお医者さんだったんですか?
Listen, man. Apparently, doctors don't pay the bills, so he's got to, be a coach too. Now that you mention it, he did seem to know his way around when he was looking at my shoulder in the nurse's office. It would make sense if he was actually a doctor. Come to think of it, our teacher called him Erie Sensei, didn't she?
一応お医者さんなんかやっています。お医者さんはいいですよ。若いすべすべなお肌を見放題の触り放題。
Yeah, that tracks.
怪しいお注射で
He's
自由
still
を
the
奪っ
same.
て
Same.
私だけの専属メイドに。
ありがとうございました。今のを見てただけで風邪が治りました。失礼します。ペコリ。
He's like, I need to get away like right now. Polite. He says polite now. That's awesome.
前原さん。冗談です。 さあさあさあ、座って診察させてください。聴診器を当てますから、前原さんのすべすべのお胸を見せてください。
Why does he have to say it like that? For some reason, I felt really relieved. After that insane night, as much as I thought everything had gone crazy, Coach was here doing the same thing he always did. I was very happy for that.
風邪ではないようですね。むしろ全身の擦り傷や切り傷の方が痛々しいくらいです。ひょっとして半袖半ズボンで藪の中に入って遊びましたか？切り傷から破傷風菌が入った可能性もないとは言えませんし。
Tetanus. As I was chasing that man last night, I kept being scraped by bits of trees. I didn't realize I had so many cuts.
昨日のお祭りではしゃぎすぎましたね。若いというのはいいことです。
And once again, I apparently went to the festival.
監督も行ったんですよね、お祭り。
ええ、もちろんですよ。私こう見えても綿流しの実行委員会の役員ですからね。
俺に会いましたか？
This coach was the same coach that I'd always known. I felt like I could trust him more than my weird friends, so I asked.
実は私、本部テントでずっと会長さんたちとお酒を飲んでたんで、全然お祭りは見て回ってないんですよ。
My man has priorities
前
together.
原さんには会ってないと思います。
そうですか。
変わった質問をしましたね。ひょっとして今日寝不足ですか？いけませんよ。成長期はよく食べよく寝て育つんですから。
Erie's great, man. I love him. Coach let out a laugh. He didn't laugh in an unnatural way like Mion and Rena did. Coach was okay. He was the coach from the world I knew. He wasn't someone from this abnormal world.
こんな話、きっと変だと思うんですけど、笑わないで聞いてほしいんです。
ねえ、どうぞ。思春期のシャイな悩み、大いに歓迎ですよ。
Oh my god. Alright,
俺
bro.
と瓜二つな人間がいるなんて
That's a
ありえ
odd
ますか？
question. That's super weird to ask. Coach hadn't expected that question at all and couldn't say anything for a moment. But then he smiled calmly and quietly answered.
迷信ですが、世界には自分と全く同じ顔をした人があと2人いるなんて話を聞いたことがありますね。いるならぜひお会いしてみたいものですが。あと、おとぎ話にも自分の分身が登場する話がいろいろありますよ。ドイツのおとぎ話に出てくるドッペルのお化けなどは有名です。
ドッペルのお化け？
ええ、自分の姿に瓜二つなんだそうです。不幸の前触れなんだそうで、これに遭ってしまうと近いうちに死んでしまうみたいな話らしいですよ。
When you meet them, you're sure to die soon. The story ended directly in death, plain and simple, and it made my spine tingle. Coach wasn't saying it to scare me, though. He was just offering a casual anecdote, but that made it feel all the more real.
そのお化けがHinamizawaに出るなんて話はありますか？
Totally
さ
hasn't.
て、どうでしょう。
Coach must have thought he was being teased, so he laughed in an exaggerated way. But when I didn't smile along with him, his laughter steadily grew fainter.
すみません。ちょっと真面目な話のつもりだったんで。
いえ、こっちこそ笑ってすみませんでした。何か気になることでもおありですか？
I wondered if I should tell him. Then, after resolving myself one final time, I slowly spoke.
俺、昨日はお祭りに行っていないんです。
そうでしたか。お祭りは来年もあります。その時また。
そうじゃなくて、俺は祭りに行っていないのに、みんなが言うには俺は祭りにいたらしいんですよ。こんなことってあるんですか？
It is super weird. After blinking his eyes in amazement, Coach thought seriously about what I was trying to say, and he answered, choosing his words carefully.
お話を整理しますね。つまり前原くんは綿流しのお祭りに行ったけど、その記憶がないということですか？
I was trying to say something completely different, but I suppose any sane person would come to that conclusion. That night, Keiichi Maibara was actually at the festival, but I was saying I didn't go. That obviously meant my memories of going there had failed me. But that was absolutely impossible. That vivid act I had committed during the downpour couldn't possibly have been an illusion. All these scrapes on my body prove it, as does the fact that the bat wasn't in the locker.
いえ、違うんです、監督。俺は本当に祭りに行っていないんです。
気を悪くしないでくださいよ、前原さん。前原さんにはこれまでに気づいたら見知らぬ場所にいたとか、そういう記憶の欠落を経験されたことがありますか？
ないです。それに記憶を失ったとかそういうのじゃない。だってその祭りの時間には別の用事を確かにやっていましたから。
Oh, what were you, what were
寝
you
てて
doing,
意
bro?
識がなかったとかそういうのじゃありません。
その用事は間違いなく、大変失礼ですが、何かの思い込みでなく。
間違いありません。完全にはっきりとした記憶、いや事実です。
お祭りの時間に神社にいなくて、よそで別の用事をしていた。それをはっきりした形で証明できますか？
I mean, he could. It just won't work out well for him. That's right. Thinking it through brought me to this. There's only one way to prove that I really wasn't at the festival yesterday. And that was to show that there was no doubt I had killed her uncle. Coach saw me struggling to answer and his eyes looked a little cold. I guess they would. After all, from Coach's perspective, I was just a weirdo sputtering nonsense.
少し横になりましょうか。心を落ち着けて楽にしましょう。
別に横になりに遠慮します。
少し神経に高ぶりがあるようです。鎮静剤を注射して少し目をつむってみませんか？それで。
俺は異常者じゃない。
If you yell you're not being strange like that, you're kind of being strange. I realized Coach was treating me like a deviant, so I raised my voice.
気に障ったなら謝ります。ですからどうか落ち着いて。
俺は絶対に祭りには行っていない。それは本当に間違いないんです。
分かってます。分かってますから、どうか落ち着いて深呼吸を。
I feel so bad for Erie right now. Like, he's really trying his best to help Keiichi, and he's just, like, so out of it and just so far gone at this
あ
point.
んたは全然分かっていない。
Coach was stunned and stared in stupefaction.
分かっていますよ。前原さん、あなたは昨日はお祭りに来なかった。そうですよね。私は信じます。信じますよ。
Coach jotted down a brief note in his records. He was writing it in German, so that his patient wouldn't know what it said. Interesting. I can make a good guess as to what he
あの
wrote.
時間に何をしていたか全部話さないと信じませんか？
いいえ、信じますから。どうか座ってください。
Before I sat, I tilted my head back a little. The blood in my face all drained out, and I quieted down. After taking a deep breath, I made sure that I was calm now.
俺が祭りの会場にいることはありえない。なぜならその時間に俺は。
Is he gonna actually admit to it? Should I tell him or not? I really didn't want to go on living like this, feeling this horrible. And I said them, the final fatal words.
里子の王子を殺していたからです。
Damn. I wasn't expecting him to actually, like, admit it. Holy crap. I could smell the concrete in the room. I could feel the air around us sharpen. Nobody moved. Only the sound of the clock ticking told us time hadn't stopped. With his mouth wide open, Coach even forgot to blink for a little while.
あなたが里子ちゃんのおじさんを。
Yeah. It's fine now, Keiichi Maibara. Don't hesitate. Admit it with all your strength.
はい、俺が昨日の夜殺しました。
I spoke clearly and fluidly. I could easily tell that Coach's mind had gone completely blank.
どうしてそんなことを。いえ、それは愚問ですね。
Yeah, you know exactly why he would do it. You probably would do it too if you could.
里子を救う最も直接的な方法だと考えるに至り実行しました。後悔はわずかもありません。
そうですか。
Coach smiled thinly and nodded a
だ
bit.
から俺は祭りの会場にいるわけがないんです。
I left the brightness of my house for the darkness of the outside. After that, I dug holes, made phone calls. I had my hands full. And then I attacked him, killed him, and buried him. It was pouring hard at the time. The festival started that evening, but it was suspended due to the rain. There were no gaps in my memories. From late afternoon until it started to rain, there was no time for me to possibly have gone to the festival.
その体中の傷はその時に。
そうです。里子の家を少し行ったところに林道がありますよね。あそこで襲い、逃げるあいつを追い、町に至る一本道で殺すに至りました。
He's just telling him all the details to it. Okay.
それは本当に。
Killing your uncle, it wasn't some wild fantasy? I could tell that Coach didn't believe me, so I spoke slowly, not letting myself grow excited.
本当です。サトシのバットで殴り、そのバットはあいつが乗ってきたバイクと一緒に沼に捨てました。死体は殺した場所に穴を掘り埋めました。すべて自分が一人でやりました。
里子ちゃんの叔父はバイクで通りかかったんですね。ではあなたはそれを期待して延々と待ち伏せを。
あいつが家から出ないことは想定していました。だから電話で適当な嘘を喋ってあいつが出かけるように仕向けました。
電話で呼び出した。でもあなたの家と里子ちゃんの家は離れています。電話をしてからではとても待ち伏せに間に合わないのでは。
襲撃予定場所から最も近い電話として学校の電話を使いました。
でも前原さん、当日は日曜日です。学校には施錠がされていて入れないのでは。
偶然その時営林署の人が中に出入りしたんです。その隙に入りました。
After that, Coach grilled me on a few different things regarding the incident. He made sure to question me carefully, looking for any contradictions in my account.
信じましょう。
This is still like one of my favorite pieces of music too. I love this
あ
theme.
なたが昨日したことは夢とは思えない。
I explained everything, including minor details that only someone who had actually committed the act could explain. I could, of course. It was only yesterday. Coach realized that my story had no expedient coincidences or too convenient details that would have existed in a daydream or a delusion, and finally seemed to want to believe me.
これでもまだ俺が記憶をなくして祭り会場に行ったと思いますか？
Coach slowly shook his head.
でもクラスのみんなが昨日確かに俺が祭りにいたと言います。そんなことがあり得るでしょうか？
あるわけがない。きっとクラスの皆さんはあなたによく似た誰かとあなたを見間違えたのでしょう。
Which would be so weird.
それに集団心理が働いて皆さんはあなたがお祭りにいたと錯覚してしまっているに違いありません。
But who would have been spending time with them that looked like Keiichi? They couldn't have mistaken me. Mian and all the rest said they were spending time with Keiichi Maibara. It was much more than just having mistaken someone else for me. But saying that out loud would just confuse Coach. He spoke to me in whispered tones.
罪の意識はあるんですか？
It didn't sound like he was criticizing me. And even if he had, I would have flatly said the same
あり
thing.
ません。あいつのいなかった平穏な時間を取り戻すために行いました。だから俺はあいつを殺したことなんかさっさと忘れてこれまで通りに生活するつもりです。あいつが現れる前、里子がいつも見せてくれたあの笑顔が戻った時、ようやく全ては終わります。
犯行を誰かに目撃されたということは？
ないと思います。目撃されてればもうとっくに逮捕されてるでしょうから。
私は医者です。人の命を救う職にあります。だから私から人間の命を奪うことを肯定する旨の発言はできません。だから私はあなたにこう言います。
Oh, that's too close. Coach slowly rose and placed a hand on my shoulder.
里子ちゃんを救ってくれて
Man.
ありがとう。
Coach's eyes started shedding warm tears. When I looked at him, I started to feel some tears of my own. Huh? I didn't know what I was crying for. And so for a little while, the two men in the room fought back their tears.
でもおかしいんです。
おかしいとは？
確かに殺したはずなのに、あの男は生きて家に帰ったらしいんです。
Coach's expression immediately sharpened.
状況にもよりますが、気絶や仮死状態など、素人が見ると死んだようにしか見えない状態
No,
も
like-
いくつかあります。
He was like dead.
その可能性は？
脈を取ったわけではありませんが、確実に仕留めたと思います。
前原さんが襲った時の状況を再現してもらってもいいですか？
Coach rolled up a Health and Fitness Week poster nearby and offered it to me to represent the bat. Just gave him a couple bonks on the head. Though I may have been lost in the emotions of a beast that night, I remembered in detail the number of times I swung the bat, the angles I had swung from, and the force I had applied. Swipe. Using Coach as a stand-in for the uncle, I reproduced them over, one by one.
そしてあいつが足を取られてよろめいた時のその時、これまでとは違った手応えがありました。頭蓋骨が割れたんだと思いました。
Coach was calmly analyzing this information, using the places I'd struck in the situation at hand to find out what state the uncle's body had been
そ
in.
して死んだかどうか自信が持てなかったので、倒れた後も何度か殴りつけました。
その時の反応は？
初めは殴るたびに体が跳ねるような感じがありましたが、やがてそれもなくなり、何の反応もなくなりました。
Coach folded his arms and said, a few times. And then he spoke.
死んでいます。ほぼ間違いなく。
それは仮死状態ではなく、
You absolutely did him in,
前
man.
原さんの話からだけではなかなか判断がつきませんが、ほぼ確実だと思います。
No one could survive that many swings with a metal bat to the noggin.
それに前原さんは死体を泥の中に埋め、結構な時間をかけて埋めていますよね。仮に30分で埋めたとして、その男は30分間も泥水に沈められていたことになります。それだけの時間、呼吸が止められたら確実に脳死します。
殴った強さ以前に埋める過程で確実に絶命したと。
Yeah, he would have drowned under mud.
そういうことです。30分間泥に埋められていて生きていられる人などありえません。
ありえないですよね。でも聡子は生きてると。
Coach at doctor just gave a stamp of approval that he was dead for sure. That made it seem all the more unfair that he could still be among the living.
前原さん、これはとても恐ろしい想像なのですが、前原さんが殺した相手が叔父でなく
Oh,
別人である可能性は？
I didn't even think about that. But who else could? I didn't think about that as an option.
え？
That's why he's a doctor. He's smart. He's right. That could be why it cleared up the inconsistency of my definitely having killed someone, but him still being alive.
そんなはずはない。だってほら、監督と一緒に聡子の家の前で酒瓶の袋を運んだ時、窓から顔を出した男がいたじゃないですか。あいつですよね、聡子の叔父は。
ええ、間違いありませんよ。あの男です。
実はもう一人叔父がいるなんてことは？
聞いたことがありません。あの男だけです。
あいつの特徴を教えてもらえますか
？175、もう少しあるかもしれません。
In order to eliminate the worst possibility that I killed someone else, Coach began to thoroughly compare what the man in his mind looked like with what I told him the person I killed looked like. But no matter how in-depth my description went, none of the characteristics differed. The uncle's traits, according to Coach, were all exactly the same as the person I'd killed. Those traits were all extremely vague, and they weren't particularly distinct at a glance.
もっとこう絶対にあいつだと識別できる特徴はありませんか？
そういえば私は見たことありませんが、聡子ちゃんが昔背中に虎だかなんだかの入れ墨があるなんて言っていたような気がします。
入れ墨？
That was really important. Not everyone had a tattoo, especially of a tiger on your back. If I found a tiger tattoo on the back of this man's corpse, it would be proof I'd killed the right one. At the moment, though, there's one other thing that would verify this. To go to Sato's house and see for myself the uncle that had returned home despite having died. But that was far more terrifying than digging up the body and looking at its back. Without even looking at the tattoo, I knew for sure the one I'd killed had been Sato's uncle. I cracked his head open and killed him. And yet, he'd gone back home. There wasn't any misunderstanding or even the shadow of doubt in my mind about having killed him. And yet, it was impossible for him to exist. Kinda like how Keiichi Maibara had been at the festival, despite it being impossible. That small commonality made me feel as though a faint but bizarre force was permeating this insane Hinamizawa.
一体どういうことなのでしょう。
Same, bro.
前原さんはお祭りには行かず、お祭りにはあなたがいて、そして殺したはずのおじさんも生きている。
Erie is being such a bro during all this.
何がなんだかさっぱりわからないです。そうやって整理して言うと、まるで俺が悪い夢を見ていて、実は殺人なんて存在しなかったんじゃないかと思えてしまう。でも事実なんです。この手でバットでガツンガツンと殴ったあの感触は絶対に夢や幻なんかじゃないんです。
Coach Lau, slow sigh, then after looking at the clock, got up.
ちょっとこの話、もう少し真剣にやりましょう。ちょっと失礼して、紅茶でも入れてきてあげます。診療所も終わりの時間ですからね。ジムの方とかも返してあげないと。
Coach stood up and went out into the hallway, leaving me alone. The clock was about to strike 6. I was at the festival, and the uncle I'd killed was alive. Had I really committed murder yesterday? The only whisper of a fact that proved it happened was the absence of that bat from Satoshi's locker. In any case, I was glad that Coach had taken my nonsense seriously. I just confessed to Moida. Normally that would frighten a person away. But Coach didn't run, he cried with me. I was glad he did. Like so, my tension smoothly melted away, and I suddenly realized I really had to urinate. My dude's gotta take out Petty. I thought to use the restroom while Coach had stepped out. There's one across from the waiting room. As soon as I left the room, I saw Coach and 2 male doctors wearing white clothing standing in the shadow of the hallway nearby. I didn't particularly intend to eavesdrop or anything, but I was quite surprised upon noticing how uneasy they seemed. I hid behind the wall and quietly listened in. It seemed like Coach was giving directions to the 2 doctors.
紅茶ですね。用意します。
睡眠導入剤を入れて、種類は任せます。
Oh, it's getting serious.
味はミルクと砂糖でごまかしてください。
They're about to drug my boy.
急激な眠気に不信感を抱く可能性もあります。
That's when you know it's getting serious when this theme
興
pops.
奮状態に陥って暴れ出す可能性も。
その場合は取り押さえましょう。男性スタッフはまだ何人か残ってますか？
山犬が1人、それに私たちを含めて3人です。
Mountain dog. Okay. What was all this? I think I was already agitated despite what Coach said. Was that it? Was it just a casual conversation and was only sounding unbelievable to me? Coach said he would bring back some black tea and left the room. And then in the shadows, he was telling the subordinates to put some kind of sleeping powder in the tea. Plus, they were getting extra help in case I thought the son's sleepiness was suspicious and started getting violent. Hey, wait, Keiichi-Maibara. Calm down, calm down. There's no way something this stupid could be happening. I mean, he was genuinely listening to my story, and he even cried with me. I thought he was the one person in Hinamizawa who would understand. This was...
作り話か虚言の兆候があり、特に昨日の記憶が完全に混乱。虚実の区別の喪失、多重人格等の精神障害に酷似しています。でも、こんな急激な精神障害の発症は普通では考えられません。あるいは先天的、もしくは引っ越し前からそういう兆候があったのか。引っ越し前に精神科に通院例がないか調べたいところです。とにかく前原さんには穏便にお休みいただきます。
The 2 doctors nodded deeply.
前原さんのご両親にも連絡しておいた方が良いですね。何と言えばいいか、彼の自宅の電話番号を調べてください。
My eyes, still moist, began to shed tears once more. This was too cruel. I really thought he had actually understood, and had believed what I told him. But now, from the other side of that wall, he was bluntly treating me like a crazy person. I believed you. He's getting my edge. I let my guard down. Because I thought you were the only ally I'd left after that insane night. Was that a lie? All that about thanking me on Sato's behalf, were you just pretending in order to keep me placated? Urgh. My tears fell to the floor in frustration. I was an idiot. I was such an idiot for believing that bastard. I heard footsteps approaching the doctors. A man in a dress shirt with no tie came running up.
入江先生、大変です。高野さんが見つかりました。
高野さんが一体どこに？
それが山中で焼死体で発見されたらしく。
Oh. Things are getting real. Like, really quick. There's so much going on all at once.
高野さんがですか？
The men, all surprised, exchanged glances. Dead. Takano-san? Hey, wait, so then does that mean when I cursed her, wishing for her death, that wish was granted? Oh, bro, I forgot about that.
焼死とは一体どういうことですか？それは事故ですか？
県警の発表では他殺の可能性が極めて高いと。
I read that at first, that it said, like, she was extremely high, and that's why she was buried. I'm like, wait a minute. As I cried, I laughed quietly. Bro, you're being creepy and weird. Serves you right, serves you right. If I hadn't run into that woman, my murder would have been perfect. But she just had to come driving up to me and tried to coerce me like that. I regret not having killed her on the spot, but now she was dead anyway. My curse, my wish for her demise, it was fulfilled. Serves you right. Serves you right.
リサさんが死に、高野さんが死に、一体ひなみ沢には何が起こっているというんですか？まさかこれが今年のお社様のたたりだなんて言うんじゃないでしょうね。
Who was Risa-san? Like hell, I'll let the curse be real, Coach said. Everyone present just nodded as Coach cursed at no one in particular. Yes, maybe it wasn't Oyashiro-Sama, but this was definitely a spell, a curse. I wished for her to die, so she did. If this wasn't just a coincidence, and she died because I wished for it, then you'll die next, Coach. You betrayed me. You pretend to believe me, but deep down you thought I was a madman. You looked down on me with all the pity in your eyes. Bro, Keiichi's
とりあえず紅茶の準備を。
a bit unhinged. Just a little bit.
紅茶は私が持って入ります。私以外には彼は心を許さないようですからね。
Shit. What do I do? What do I do, Keiichi Maibara? This time I heard the voice of a nurse.
入江先生。あ、いらっしゃいましたか。お電話です。
今ちょっと忙しいので、後でかけ直すと伝えてください。誰からです？
沖宮警察の大石様ですけど。
あっちゃー、悪いタイミングですね。出ます。
Coach left to go answer the phone. The other men headed towards the room with the teapot to make the black tea, like Coach had ordered them to. Fortunately, Coach having to take that phone call meant there would be extra time for me to act. I had to decide what to do now. Would I let him make me drink the sedative of Fungo's tea? Or be held down and thrown into a mental hospital? Nothing would come from starting a brawl here. They had more people anyway, and they were all bigger than me. If it came to a fight, I didn't stand a chance in hell. If I couldn't win against them, then there was only one thing left to do. Run. Adrenaline suddenly rushed into my brain and my body, and started to move with keen instinct like I had on that night. My surface temperature quickly cooled, and the transmission routes between my cells enlarged. Super specific, I love it. Using 360-degree visual information, I searched for an escape route. I would open the window behind me. Outside was a parking lot. There were no cars. A little beyond there was the bicycle I had taken to get here. I determined this would be the quickest method of escape. I approached the window swiftly, with little sound to raise a little suspicion as I could. With the speed and silence of a shadow, like I'd been on that night I chased her uncle. I had unlocked the window and opened it up. A cool evening breeze wafted in. I stuck my head out and looked over the parking lot again. Nobody in sight. No need to hesitate. I quietly crawled outside and closed the window behind me. I held my breath and listened carefully. Nobody seemed to have realized I'd run. I looked around. Then I jumped onto my bicycle and zoomed away. Zoomies. The pedals clattered under the force. Had my bike always creaked like this? The pedals always whine every time I pushed down on them? My bike wasn't the only one crying, though. My tears fell as the wind cut through them. They rode the breeze and scattered behind me. I hate this. I'm not the crazy one Hinamizawa is. How dare you treat me like a madman? Yeah, Keiichi, you're not the crazy one. The entire village is crazy. Die. Die. Just die already. I believed you. Wah. My dude is just crying while riding his bike, man. I got into the hospital in order to escape Ren and Mion's invitation. But the reality that was waiting for me had been too cruel. Who was insane, me or Hinamizawa? Or was the answer something else? I started having trouble breathing. I didn't have any clue what was happening anymore. The loud chirps of the Higurashi were irritating me. Were even the Hinamizawa Higurashi I knew so well calling into the wind? No, that wasn't quite it. They weren't calling. They were crying. He said the thing, he said the thing, he said the thing. The pained wailing of those lost in some kind of rhythm in another world, no longer able to return to their own sunlight. I didn't do all that to end up in a world like that. And actually, at about this time, I might have been having fun with everyone else. Satoko would have gotten her smile back after realizing her uncle wouldn't ever come home, and she might have shown it to us at our first club meeting in a while. That was the kind of world I wished for. So what was this? Why did I end up in such a strange, ghastly world? Someone I killed was living like normal, and I had enjoyed myself at the festival despite not being there. I don't want it. I don't want this strange world. When did it start to go wrong? When? When you did some moida. Or when her uncle showed up, probably is when it started. No matter how much I thought about it, I never understood. I rode swiftly and returned to my home. It had begun to rain during my journey back, and just like yesterday, I was now soaked. But I didn't care about something so trivial right now. The pain I felt in my heart that Coach, the one person I trusted, was acting so cruelly, was far worse. Did I have no allies in Hinamizawa anymore? With a naive thought that I at least wanted my parents to side with me, I stepped up to the front door. Wait, Keiichi. It'll be dark soon. There's something you want to check, right? Yes. I wanted to dig up the man's corpse and get a look at his back. If there was a tiger tattoo there, I would know beyond a doubt he was Satoko's uncle. That long night wouldn't end until I was certain. This insane world was all reparation, all a divine punishment, that I needed to make certain whether I had been successful enough to even deserve to pay that price. I went to the storage room again and got the shovel. It had been washed in the rain, but the paint was peeling, making it look unsightly. I never ever wanted to touch this thing again. The sensation of it in my hands was totally different from the night before. There was a ruthless coldness about it. Yeah, it would be dark soon, so I'd need the lantern too. There'd be a little bit of light from the streetlights, but it would get extremely dark.
Oh.
I thought I put the lantern here, but I suddenly noticed it wasn't anywhere to be found. Oh, he never brought that back. Oh, he left it there. Then it hit me like a bolt of lightning. Of course. On that night, I hadn't brought the lantern back with me. I'd left it at the place I buried the body. If I didn't go get it soon, it would get very dark. And then not only would I be able to find the spot I buried the corpse, but I wouldn't even be able to find the lantern itself. If that happened, it was all over.
急ごう。
In order to fit the shovel in the basket in my front of my bike, I'd need to twist it and disassemble it. But it looked like there was dirt in the joints, and no matter how hard I pushed, it didn't want to come apart. After a strenuous effort, I realized I couldn't get it apart, so I decided to hold it in one hand and ride my bike with the other. In pouring rain, that sounds super dangerous. With the downpour soaking me through and a shovel in one hand, and riding one-handed, it was as if I'd returned to that night. No, return was the wrong word. You never left it, bro. It's more like that night had never ended exactly. The pain of the raindrops striking me were no different from then. The thing that was different was Hinamizawa. The world and nothing else. The rain clouds were already making it dark, and now it was about time for the sun to set. I could tell it would only get rapidly darker. The straight road leading to town, in the middle of it. That should be where I buried it. Yes, it was near that streetlight. On that night, too, the water from the downpour was splashing down from the streetlight's overhang like a waterfall. The pouring rain was exactly the same as it had been that night, and thus it brought my memories into focus. I left my bike in the brush and stepped into the forest, the ground already soaked with mud. Where had I buried him? Think. The darkness, the shadows, the water, the mud. Everything was the same. Think. And then I spotted the lantern by a fallen, moss-covered tree. That's right, I left it right there. If I left the lantern here, then I would have buried him over here. With the sensation of standing in the sludge, my feet remembered the spot better than my eyes did. I plunged my shovel into the ground. It's hard. It wasn't here. I just dug it up so it should have been softer. I stuck my shovel down in a few spots to test what they feel like. One of them clearly felt deeper. I recalled where the lantern was, where the trees and things were in relation to each other, and knew that it had to be here. Under here slept that man's corpse. There would definitely be the tattoo of a tiger on his back. But if it wasn't there, then I had made a horrible mistake and killed someone completely unrelated instead. I'd be more dazed at the fact that Satsuko's uncle wasn't dead than I would regret having gotten someone else mixed up in this. If this insane world was punishment for the sin of committing murder, I wouldn't be able to accept it until I'd killed Satsuko's uncle for good. And then, without any fear, I'd attack him again. And that time, I would kill him for sure. Are you positive, though, bro? Like, there's a lot going on. But what if the tattoo was there? That would mean I killed Satsuko's uncle. But that would be terribly strange. If I'd killed him for sure, then who was the uncle at Satsuko's house this very moment? Impossible. I didn't even know anymore what I was using the word impossible to refer to. I've used the word quite a few times today. If I had to make the words impossible fit just one thing, what would it be? That much was obvious to me.
こんなおかしな世界がありえてたまるかよ
Exactly. I shouted, then turned behind me. There was nobody there, of course. It hadn't been bothering me for a while, but those footsteps had followed me this entire day. Even just now, an extra set of footsteps had splashed behind me. No one was actually there, no indications of anyone even. But they were there.
あんたは誰だ俺がこっちの世界に来てからずっとついてくるな
That's right. Thinking back, the first time I heard those footsteps was after Takano-san and I had parted. Those footsteps were my welcome into this strange inside-out world. No one could be there. I'd get no response. Whoever it was, they just kept staring at me. It wasn't ominous, just unpleasant. After staring into empty space for a bit, as I bathed in the rain, my illogical anger slipped away. My tension loosened, and a tired feeling reared its head. I tasted this feeling that night, too. The sudden exhaustion I felt as the tension in my brain loosened. My vision quickly narrowed, and I felt like everything around me had suddenly gotten darker. I couldn't give in to this sensation. I would light what little explosives were left in my brain and force myself to keep going. I needed to dig that man up before my stamina ran out. I needed to see the tattoo on his back. I caught my suddenly ragged breath and calmed down. Then, I stuck the shovel into soft, muddy ground again. It felt exactly the same as that night. The sense of digging a hole in the beach with water coming into it with every wave. What day was today? Had I gone back to the night of Watanagashi? Every strange thought that came to mind tormented me. Given my exhaustion, I didn't think I could manage to hold those thoughts back. Once the hole was deep, all illumination finally faded, blanketing my vision in jet black. It's probably the moment the sun had fully set, too. That night, I had feared the worst, and gone without using much light. My senses were so strained that I could even see in the darkness. But now, I didn't have that kind of strength left. I drained everything I had last night, and now the darkness would be lethal. I decided to turn on the lantern. Putting it on the first setting would make it give off a faint light. Even with how little there was, it was enough, and people wouldn't be able to see it from far away in this rain. I grabbed the chilled lantern, turned the dial with a click, set it to the weakest light setting, and turned it on. An uncanny world of silhouettes appeared before me. A complex and strange shadowy world created by the intricate entanglement of trees and branches. I'd only turned on a light, and it was like that was all it took to make the world into something else. I let out a quick, tired breath and wiped the liquid, neither rain nor sweat, from my brow. Then I raised a shovel into the air and slammed it into the mud. That moment, the silhouettes surrounding me, ominously all moved at once. Inside my head, something packed in there, something coarse, but not hot or cold, was loudly rushing about. The silhouettes were all around me, looking down at me, and one of them, a silhouette bigger than the others, stepped forward. Oh shit, it's Oishi. Yo. My dude got.
月の綺麗な晩ですね。
The coarseness in my brain shot through my whole spine and left me at my waist. The strength in my body all left me through my hips, and I crouched down with a splash. Into the sea of mud I dug myself.
おいし
目上の人にはその後に3もつけるとなおよろしいかと思いますよ。そうでないと大人になってからいろいろと苦労します。
It wasn't only Oishi, but 5 or 6 of them in a row, men wearing raincoats. I had no inkling that this many people had gotten so close. It was like, once I turned on the lantern, they disappeared there, sliding out of the shadows.
どうぞ森の木立だとでも思って。
Don't mind them?
そうです。私たちのことは気にされず、どうぞ穴掘りをお続けになってください。
That's freaking crazy.
こんな時間にこんな土砂降りの中でそんなにも真剣にやっているんですからね。邪魔なんかしませんよ。心ゆくまで掘っちゃってください。
No thank you, I said. When I tried to get up and turn around, two men blocked that route. They stood on either side of me and lifted me up with amazing strength, then threw me into the sea of mud. Yeah, they want him to dig up the corpse. 100%. As I soaked in the mud bath I dug for myself, I looked up at the silhouettes looking down at me. Oishi squatted, picked up my shovel, and threw it at my feet for me. It bounced loudly off the mud and hit me in the face. Ooh, ouch. I couldn't bear the oppressiveness of the silhouette surrounding me, and slowly I stuck the shovel into the mud again. I felt like I was digging my own grave. Kind of. If I kept digging, it wouldn't matter whether there was a tattoo or not, because that man's corpse would appear eventually. It was all over. Surrounded on all sides and nowhere to go. But I just couldn't figure it out, no matter how much I thought about it. Why were they here? Was it Takano-san? There's only one person who could have made the connection between me and this place. I knew it. She deserved to die. Oh, H got. Bam! Oishi kicked me in the back, which took me by surprise, sending me flying into the mud. But Oishi also just also talked to Eri, so that's probably how he knew. Yeah, Keiichi, be considerate, bro. Oishi kicked some mud into my face. Or Italians. Because I talk with my hands all the time. The men around him didn't react, not knowing quite whether they should laugh, but when Oishi glared at them, they started mumbling out painted chuckles. Just who was this guy? I knew the world had changed after that night, but if I went even further back, didn't it start when this guy showed up? That was when our peaceful days had been taken from us. Ever since he showed up in Hinamizawa, things have been odd. Everyone stopped smiling, and the world went crazy. The ground under my feet gradually got harder and heavier. At this point, even I started to think something was odd. I hadn't buried him this deep on that night, had I? My exhaustion peaked, and I sat down on the spot. At Oishi's gesture, the men all pulled out their own sinister-looking shovels. As I watched the daze, one of them grabbed my collar, dragged me out of the hole, and threw me to the ground. The rest of the men stepped into the hole I dug and started shoveling themselves. As I stared at them dumbfounded, Oishi sauntered over and squatted down to look at me directly.
Maebara Keiichi-san. あなたの趣味は雨
When I hadn't respond, Oishi took out one of the tin buckets they were using to bail out the muddy water, scooped up some of it, and splashed the whole thing in my face. Rude.
今日は大雨ですから、これ以上いくら濡れても全然わかりませんね。
Oishi smiled to himself, then scooped up another bucket full of muddy water.
もう一回聞きますよ。あなたの趣味は雨の夜の穴掘りですかな？
そんな趣味のやついるもんか？
I don't know, man. People might like digging holes. Who knows? Splash. Oishi hit me with another bucket full of muddy water. The pebbles in it stung.
あの穴を掘ると何が出てくるんですかな？私、花坂じいさんのここ掘れワンワンってのが昔から憧れでしてね。
Puppy digging his yard for gold. As he spoke, he ran the bucket through the muddy water again. Splash it in my face again.
あそこにどんな宝物が埋まってるんですかね。
The corpsey kind.
私にちょっとだけでも教えてくれませんか？
If you want to know, then dig on your own time. You pig. Rude. I wasn't saying that out loud. That's actually smart, because he'd probably beat your ass right now. I wasn't saying that out loud, but Yoshi mercilessly drenched me in muddy water again anyway. If only you hadn't shown up, the world wouldn't have gone wrong. Ever since you showed up, things have been strange. Satoko got abused by her uncle. I ended up killing him and the world went crazy. He was how it all began, because of this culprit. He splashed another bucket of mud in my face. My insides were seething with anger. Die, you die too. If I have some strange power to kill someone by cursing them, like with Takano-san, then you're dead. And it won't be Oyashiro-sama's curse, it'll be mine. I'll curse you and kill you.
反抗的な目つきですね。これを機に少しそのあたりをお勉強してしまいましょうか。今は平和な時代ですがね、私があなたくらいだった頃は何でも鉄拳制裁が普通でして。
おいさ。
One of the digging men in raincoats wiped some sweat off and called Oishi over. Oishi tossed the bucket away, then turned around with an evil grin on his face.
はいはい、何でしょうか。
これを見てください。
Acceptance or maybe resignation. I wanted to say to them, so you blockheads finally found out. Yeah, that's right, I'm the one who killed him. But you're the police, so it's your own job to figure out who he is, right? Come on, prove to me that he's really Satsuko's uncle.
何ですかこりゃ。
多分古い排水管ではないかと。
Oh, there's just nothing down there.
あそこの用水路に繋がっているようです。
ぶっ壊しちゃいましょうか。どうせ使ってない缶でしょ。
Men all exchanged glances, then hesitantly broached another topic.
もうかなり手応えが硬いです。これより深くってことはありえないと思います。
掘る場所を間違えました。
いえ、初めのうちは明らかに掘り返す感触でした。ですが、このくらいを掘った頃から急に硬くなりまして。
Like, he did dig a hole. Oh, wait. This is the wrong hole. Because he went and dug this hole first, and then chased him down, dug that hole and buried him, and then he remembered about this hole, had to come back here and refill this hole in. So that's why there's nobody in here.
多分、もともと掘った穴よりも深く掘り進んだのだと思います。
じゃあ、つまり何ですか。ここには穴があって、何もなく、皆さん、そうおっしゃるわけで。
What? What were they talking about? That's a laugh and a
こ
half.
りゃ参ったな。ねえ、前原さん。
Oishi grabbed my collar and dragged me to the huge hole they dug. The mud inside was like an ocean, and I couldn't see any drain pipe down there. One of the men stirred it with a shovel, letting me hear it clang against something hard. There was no doubt I'd buried him right here, but I hadn't buried him this deep. I didn't dig deep enough to unearth the entire drain pipe. So then, this man, his corpse, where was it? Proof that I'd been successful on that night was gone. Gone. Then what on earth was I? Was I actually crazy after all, and just possessed by a delusion that I'd killed someone? That couldn't be. It was the unmistakable truth. It couldn't have been a hallucination. But now, the most important evidence that it hadn't been an illusion was gone. I killed him. I buried him. I had absolute unwavering confidence in that fact. Then, did I fail to kill him? After I left here, had he started breathing again, crawled out, and gone back to Satsuko's house? Was that it? I'd come here to see whether he had a tattoo or not, and yet the truth I unearthed was far more than that. Yesterday, what was I killed him. I buried him. There's no doubt. But for some reason he lived and crawled back out. And that was impossible too. So tired of hearing the word impossible over and over. Then stop saying it. I get it. Dead people don't like to play by the rules here in Hinamizawa. Then I'll kill you as many times as I need to. I'll keep killing you until you never show your face to Satsuko again. Oishi and the others were muttering to each other. Eventually their conversation ended and Oishi came towards me. What did he want to say? What did he want to do? I stiffened, tensing up. Then Oishi just ignored me like I wasn't even there and passed right by me. The other men too, they ignored me and shuffled away. Eventually, there was no longer a sign that anyone was around, and I returned to my quiet world of silhouettes. The only one left there was me. Only the sound of the pouring rain filled up the silence. Oof. That is the first, break they gave in almost 2 hours. That was a long stretch. Dang, man. There we go, the end of the chapter. Alright, so we got 2 tips. Alright, so we got inquiry requests as the first tip. Let's check this out. Okinomiya Police Station Command Center transmission recording. June 20th, 8:08 p.m.
こちら沖宮 PS 感度良好です。
車両ナンバー紹介お願いします。獅子骨歯の4344。
They definitely got it sounding like a radio.
獅子骨歯の4344。少々お時間もらえますがよろしいですか？
お願いします。
Number match. Shibone H4344. Owner blank. Address Hinamizawa Village. Vehicle make and model blank. Theft reports none. Special mentions nothing of
沖
note.
宮 PS より大石社どうぞ。先ほどのナンバーが判明しました。
Is this them finding
大石社どうぞ。
Takno's
大
car?
石社応答願います。あれ？電波悪いのかな。大石社応答願。
大石さんが車両紹介？誰の車だよ。
It's gotta be
村人の
Takno's.
車ですね。至って平凡な。
何者だよ。大石さんが聞いてくるからにはただものじゃないんだろ。
突起事項欄は完全に空欄ですね。S 号指定もなし。減点もなしだし。
バッシングでもされて腹が立ったんじゃないの？あの人根に持つとなかなか忘れないタイプなんだよ。
That would actually be really funny if it was just somebody who passed him on the road. Okay, so he just called in a license plate, but we don't really know. Alright, record of malice. He said it smelled. He said the food smelled. He said it smelled because I smelled. He said I smelled because I don't take baths. He said to take a bath 3 times a day because I was a smelly person. He said I'd stay in the bath for a long time every time. He must be possessed by something too. This is the same thing the man who died said. Why does he know what the man said before? That much is obvious. The same thing that possessed that man is now possessing him. Can't a sudden earthquake make a big hole in front of the house? If it did, he would definitely go and look into it. And I just have to push him in. I won't give in until I get that chance. I won't give in, I won't cry. Is this like Sato's diary? It's very freaking sad, man. I won't give in, I won't cry. Someone is apologizing again. Body wasn't there. Police didn't arrest me because of that. I didn't know whether to feel happy about it. Just like Satoko had said, I failed to kill her uncle. The body wasn't there, so I was forced to conclude as much. No matter what strange natural disaster, coincidence, or miracle it might have implied. In order to free Satoko, I became a demon. And this abnormal world was my reward. Yes, metaphorically, I'd fallen into the demon world. If that price had been in exchange for the life of Satoko's uncle, then that would have been fine. Since Satoko's uncle is still alive, still shackling her to him, I need to become a demon once again. One more time. Oh. No, as many times as it took. I would kill that man over and over again until Satoko was liberated. Well, my dude's dedicated, if nothing else. I'd already awoken. I looked at the clock to see that it was early in the morning, just about 5. It was already light outside. Once I'd hardened my resolve to become a demon again. I could feel my whole body teeming with awakened power once more. Time wasn't an issue. No matter what, I'd do it. I got myself up. The exhaustion from the past 2 days was completely swept away, and I didn't even feel sleepy anymore either. I slowly rose to make sure my body was moving like I wanted it to. I could feel blood flowing through each and every one of my fingers. As I got dressed, I let my mind wander, and had a strange thought. These 2 days, while I've said it was for Satoko's sake, the only thing on my mind has been killing. I said it was for Satoko. While actually carrying out the act, I'd completely forgotten about Satoko, albeit only temporarily. Maybe initially it was for Satoko's sake, but now I was just a demon killing for the sake of killing, and as a result, I'd sunk into a world fit for such a demon. Maybe it was the same for Satoshi. He resolved himself to kill his aunt to save Satoko, became a demon, then disappeared from the sunlit Hinamizawa, vanishing into the demon world. Which meant that, after all was said and done, I'd met the same fate as him. I tried to avoid making the same mistakes, but it happened anyway. Which meant that maybe Satoshi was here. Satoshi had come to this world a year before me, so he would be here somewhere. I mean, I don't know, man. There's just a lot going on. Then, surprised, I stopped walking. There was a second set of footsteps I'd grown so used to hearing.
お前、ひょっとして、サトシなのか?
The empty, lifeless air wouldn't give me an answer. But I felt a strange kind of relief that there was someone there, that Satoshi had stuck with me the whole time. Let's go, Satoshi. Once more. This time, we will set Satoko free for sure. I quietly slipped out of the house so my parents wouldn't notice. If they caught me now when I'd been out way too late for 2 days now, they'd give me a really angry talking to. I didn't have the time to allow for that to happen. Today, I would put an end to it. If the dead body disappeared, then I didn't have to bury it. I could just burn it to ashes and then take them with me, so I could kill him again every time he resurrected. Dang, that's dedication. I'd do it again, I'd kill him again. And this time I'd set her free. Outside, the morning light was so beautiful as to stagger belief. I went to his storage room to find weapons with which I could kill him for sure. Blunt or not, it didn't matter to me. Right now, I didn't need to care whether someone saw or if the police came. This world had gone crazy after all. A world where I'd shown up at the festival and had fun even though I wasn't there. Even if the police arrested me, I'd probably end up going right back home as if nothing happened. Both me and that other Keiichi Maebara. Even without me, he'd fill in. I could vanish from Hinamizawa without anyone noticing. So basically, I didn't care if I was mistakenly killed. Even if I died, Keiichi Maebara would remain. After all, this isn't the world I belong in. If I was going to be killed mistakenly for Satoko's sake, then that was just part of my duty as her nini. Aw. As those desperate thoughts became serious, the morning air felt more refreshing to me, strangely enough. It was a hatchet meant for chopping thick firewood. Its hefty steel blade was sinister, almost as though it was a tool meant for killing people. I couldn't exactly take it out in public like that, so I wrapped it in some old newspaper and tossed it into a basket on my bike. He's apologizing to his bike. I apologized to my bike for some reason. For the past 3 days, I've only used it for dangerous things. I've been riding this bike ever since I lived in my old town. I could walk most places I wanted to go, so I hadn't used it all that much. My mom had bought it for me when I entered cram school, thinking it would be a convenient way to get to the station since it was far away. So I'd always use it to get back and forth from cram school. I'd only ever put textbooks and class materials in the front basket too. I'd never tried to put a hatchet that I'd be using to kill someone in there. I would assume not. When I came to Hinamizawa, life finally felt fun. I met the best friends ever and had some of the greatest times ever. Those times might have been shattered now, but it was my greatest wish that I could get them back, even if I had to risk my life to do it. That's how fun those times have been. I killed someone, and now I was at it again, needing to kill someone. Murder was a crime. I didn't believe that people should ever think murder was okay. But still, the times I'd had were enjoyable enough for me to commit such a crime. My friends were irreplaceable, and the time spent with them a treasure. Hanging out, laughing, sometimes tricking each other, but always in a friendly way. I didn't fear committing any crime, as long as it was for the sake of taking back those times that gave my heart so much pleasure. Yes, this was a value I'd decided to uphold. It wasn't something I learned from a school teacher. It was a noble path that I chose for myself. I thought back to when I'd first come to Hinamizawa. Flashback time, boys. About how on the very first day, Satoko welcomed me via a blackboard eraser with a rock in it. That welcome really surprised the heck out of me. She would laugh, get angry, cry. She was never boring. She was obviously the most childlike one among us, but she was actually lively, full of vim and vigor, and good at meddling in other people's business. Aw, that went for Mian, Rena, and Rika-chan too. Wasn't Satoko the one at the center of everyone's laughing and banter? Satoko would try to look cool. Hey, I do that too. Then Mian would make fun of her endlessly. Then Satoko would cry, which would put Ren in a state of ecstasy. She's a freak. And Rika-chan would be greatly delighted. And I happened to get mixed up in it. We would always fool around like that. It was lonely when someone wasn't around, but if I had to name one for whom it was the worst, it would have been Satoko. Her smile was everyone's smile. Ever since she stopped smiling, so did the rest of us. And for the rest of us, not smiling was the same as dying. Oof. It sounds sad. It was just like when I was silently going to cram school every day, just to maintain my unchanging test scores. So basically, we were nothing when she wasn't smiling. She was full of hot air, but she was our princess, cute and unhateable. Aw. In that case, I was her knight, searching for the dragon's castle in order to win her smile back.
Knight なら武器は剣だろ。ツーハンデッドのかっこいいやつ。錆びた肉厚のナタで挑むナイトは、多分古今東西俺一人だな。
I saw an old person in the ridge of a field waving to me.
ケイチ君かい。朝のサイクリングかいね。
おはようございます。
How can he be so happy? I don't get it, man. He's just completely gone. I reflexively wave back in a refreshing way. Should I really have been feeling so happy waving like that? Satsuko's house would be right past this road, going beyond the rice paddies. The cicadas had woken up too, and the next thing I knew, I was the audience to their daily chorus. I gave myself a hit or two in the head and drove away my merry morning mood. I took a deep breath and tilted my head back, quelling my pointless excitement. The body wasn't there. Its absence either meant my killing him had been an illusion, or that I killed him and he'd risen from the dead. If I was at the festival, then maybe I should have considered it an illusion. Coach probably thought that way, which is why he treated me like a lunatic. But it being an illusion was just impossible. I killed him without a doubt. Without a doubt. If that had been an illusion, then that would make all of the Hinamizawas in right now an illusion. Which is crazy to think. If that was the case, then here's how it would end up. I was actually in a vegetative state due to a traffic accident, and I was currently dreaming in a hospital bed about how great it would be to spend time with friends and rice paddies like these. Oh, that's depressing, man. That was a terrifying thought, though. If this wasn't an illusion, then the only possible answer was that he'd resurrected. It would make him a literal monster. But if he was such a monster, then I was no less than a monster myself. I didn't hesitate to kill someone, and I could even wield curses. Takano-san had died probably because I'd cursed her. Or maybe that was a little much. If Coach Inuishi died too, then I'd curse them to yesterday. Then I'd believe it. Yeah, I don't think you have that power, bro. I think it was just a coincidence. Set my bicycle aside and went to take a look. His motorbike wasn't here. Of course it wasn't. I sent it down to hell that night, throwing it into the Onagafuchi swamp. Or maybe, just like how the corpse wasn't here, maybe the motorbike didn't get thrown into the swamp either. The fact his bike wasn't here might have been because he had gone to town and hadn't come back, not necessarily because I'd thrown it into the swamp. If Uncle wasn't around, then that was convenient on its own. Then I would just show myself in, then wait for him to return, sharpening my hatchet. If he was there. Forgotten sensations came back to my gut. A feeling of tension rose within me. The sensation was like poison dulling my actions. It could also be the trigger to allow me to awaken to my superhuman, otherworldly self. I held the hatchet still wrapped in newspaper. Weight in my hands was profound, sinister, and reliable. I hadn't put on my watch, so I didn't know what time it was, but it was probably still a little before 7. Satsuko would probably be awake preparing breakfast and her lunch. But her uncle would probably still be lazing around in bed. A guy like him probably would have stayed up late drinking and probably was always slept until noon. I considered ringing the doorbell and having Satsuko open the door for me, but if her uncle woke up at the sound, I'd waste my chance of him still being asleep. If Satsuko saw me sneaking inside without ringing the doorbell, she'd be surprised. If I ran into her, what would I say? I've come to kill your uncle for you, so stay quiet. No, I couldn't do that. That'd be like making Satsuko responsible for his death. Be quiet and go wait outside. Maybe that would do it. How would Satsuko react to that? She'd probably try and get me to give up on killing him. I'd have to lie somehow to get her to go outside. Satsuko didn't need to know that a murder was going to occur in this house. I couldn't quite think of a good lie to tell her, but I couldn't do much just standing around like this. I made up my mind and grabbed the doorknob. Then slowly turned it. And pulled. It wasn't locked. The gap between the door and the wall steadily grew larger. The chain wasn't even on. The oppressive smell of life in Satsuko's house hit me. At the entrance, there were a few pairs of shoes and sandals. Couldn't tell whether he was here or not just by looking at them. I could hear television on somewhere. Oh, gross. The television was in the messy dining room. There was food scattered about the table, giving an impression decidedly different from a happy family's mealtime. Meals were for eating food while thanking the person for making it, meaning whatever occurred in this dining room wasn't a meal. Nobody in sight. No sign of anyone either. But with the television on, he must have been close. Would he have anticipated my coming and be hiding and waiting for me? No. Doubtful. The tension I felt was so thick, so tight that I thought it would choke me. The newspaper wrapping the hatchet's thick blade didn't hamper its power at all. I tightened my grip on it, then very carefully took a look around. Where had those peaceful feelings from before I'd arrived here gone? Even the sound of sweat bubbling up on my brow got on my nerves. And then I looked at the table and realized something. This wasn't breakfast. The grains of boiled rice were all hard and dried up. Then, was it last night's dinner? I left the dining room keeping vigilant, went down the hallway and found the stairs to the second floor. When that man was playing with his friends, he looked out of a second-story window. It was highly possible that room was his own and that he slept there. I tiptoed up the edges of the stairs quietly climbing without making a sound. I couldn't hear any kind of snoring. Didn't hear anything up there. I went through a few rooms slowly and quietly opening the paper doors, checking inside. But I still couldn't find anyone around. To search more efficiently, I got down on the floor and pressed my ear right up to it. Strange. I could hear the television in the dining room and a low hum, perhaps of boiling water. It was then that I started to harbor some feelings of suspicion. This house wasn't right. It seemed like people had been here since the TV was on, but it wasn't normal for nobody to be around this early in the morning. I silently descended the stairs and went back into the dining room. I looked at the food scattered about. Completely dried up rice, an overturned bowl of miso soup, a package for a side dish bought at the supermarket. I could tell Satoko had definitely been the one who made this. The food was far from Mion's perfection or Rena's gentleness, but it was sincere. Judging by how she cooked for me at my house, and from the type and amount of side dishes, I deduced the meal was from last night. The number stamped into the food package read 83620. June 20th, 1983. That was yesterday. And there was food for two, which meant that this was last night's dinner and Satoko's uncle would have been here then. Stop it, Keiichi. Don't even think about saying the word impossible again. Anyway, her uncle was here last night. That much was the truth. He had found fault with Satoko's food, thrown the bowl of miso soup and flung the rest everywhere. Hidden deep within my feelings of calm and composure was lit a flame of anger and a curse. Should I have ever shown this man any mercy? But you didn't. Bump. I heard the sound again, the one from before, like a water boiler. What was it coming from? The first floor? But where? The bathroom, maybe? I could hear the noise coming from the other side of the frosted glass at the far end of the changing room. Had to have been the sound of the water boiler for the bath. Steam was enshrouding the glass door, and the heat from it was leaking into the changing room where I was standing, too. My misgivings deepened. People didn't normally take a bath this early in the morning. One did. That would mean that in this house, time had been stopped ever since some moment last night. Oh, whistle, whistle, whistle. Was it being reheated? The water boiler in the bathroom had been active this whole time. I checked an enclosing basket and saw Satoko's familiar uniform stuffed in it. The uniform had stains and dried rice stuck to it, certainly not something she could wear today. It's probably from the miso soup at the dinner table yesterday. I looked hard at the frosted glass, but I couldn't see anything through all the steam. And then an electric surge ran through my mind, and a terrible premonition came over me. Yep, she's definitely in there. She couldn't possibly have been in there since last night. That would be impossible. My dude's saying impossible again. But no. In Hinamizawa right now, nothing was impossible. I gulped audibly, then quietly pulled aside the glass door. Hot, steaming air burst out of the slight opening. The fan was on in the changing room, so it went completely white with the steam. Just as the hot vapor poured into the changing room, cooler air also flowed into the room with the bath. And I just heard, due to being hit by that air, a very weak moan. That was all I needed to know who it was.
Satoko!
Oh no, man. She's definitely like passed out or something. No answer. Satoko was in the bathtub, surrounded by a thick layer of rising steam. The top half of her body was leaning over the edge of the tub, and she was passed out. The water boiler kept on making a whistling noise, as if angered. I could see the gas flame through a small window. It was roaring at full force, completely blue. Satoko's entire body was boiled red and flaccid as though her bones had melted away. Oh god. She was almost like a doll as she lay there unconscious. I wasn't sure how many seconds passed as I stared in complete bafflement. I came back to my senses and promptly shut off the boiler. Then I dragged Satoko's small body out of the bathtub. The water in it was as hot as the water in public baths. Was she in this boiling water for the entire night? She'll die. I'm surprised she's still alive now, like holy crap. Satoko's body was lighter than I expected as I laid her on the floor and wrapped her in a towel. I went back into the bathroom and opened up the vent, creating a path for a cool breeze to come through. Upon the breeze hitting her, Satoko moaned again. She sounds so out of it. Satoko recognized me and muttered a response, but I couldn't really tell what she was saying. Her eyes were muddy and unfocused. I could tell she wasn't completely conscious. Upon closer inspection, her limbs and waist were twitching slightly. This was way worse than normal overheating. This was dangerous. Didn't they call this heat stroke? Think, what would the teacher do if a girl passed out in the middle of summer during a marathon in gym class or something? Turned the water faucet in the kitchen all the way on and soaked a towel in it. Then took the cold towel and pressed it to Satoko's forehead. Satoko reacted harshly to the coldness and let out a muffled voice. For burns, right, would soak the burn spot under running water. Then, could I run cold water in the shower and cool her off like that? I could. No, if it was that... Oh yeah, that's right. Sudden change would probably be bad. This is why I'm not a doctor or anything. No, if it was that sudden, it wouldn't be good for her heart, and she'd go into shock. I think I read that once before. This was about as much nursing as I could possibly give her. Anything more than this would be too much for the likes of an amateur. Was she counting? Was Satsuko reciting under her breath? I brought my ear to her mouth to better make out the mysterious spell-like words she kept saying. At that moment, I understood what they were for. People tell little kids in the bath to count to 100 a lot, right? I guess. Satsuko was counting like that. 5,039? 10,000? I doubted my ears and doubted her common sense. 10,000?
1万なんて数えられるバカがどこにいるんだよ。数えられるわけねえだろ。その前にユダって死んじまうに決まってんだろ。
I can't even count to 10,000 just normally. My brain would just shut off. Your uncle's kind of a dick. Last night, her uncle flew into a rage at the dinner she'd made, saying it stunk and was inedible. Satsuko didn't understand what on earth he meant. It wasn't much different than what she usually made for him. Maybe he hated the smell of the pickled vegetables she bought in particular. Her uncle then decided the stink was originating from Satsuko and shouted at her that she never ever took baths. And then he put Satsuko in the boiling water and told her not to come out until she counted to 10,000. Damn. He is mad. Like, really mad. I don't blame him, though. I snapped and exploded. Raising a newspaper-wrapped hatchet, I stampeded through the house. I searched for anything, traces, signs, smells, vibration, heartbeats. The war cry, I raced up the stairs with such force I could have stamped a hole through them. Then I found the futon in the room I thought to be her uncle's, and well aware he wasn't sleeping in it, I bashed it with the hatchet. Did he run into the closet? I'll bust the entire closet down, door and all. And if he's not there, maybe there's a secret door. Any switches or levers in the walls here? Okay, bro, you're way out of it right now. You're just breaking things for the sake of breaking them. I smashed into wall after wall with the hatchet, crushing them. Dust rose into the air and broken pieces scattered around the floor. Smashed all the glass windows too, for good measure. We good? I think we good. Nope, not good yet. After I destroyed everything beyond recognition in her uncle's room, my reason finally kicked in and suppressed my emotions. Anyway, her uncle wasn't in the house right now. I'd have to leave killing him until later. Right now, I had to do something about Satsuko. I went back to the changing room. Satsuko was still laying limp on the floor. There was nothing more an amateur like me could do for her. I needed to take her to the clinic. Coach had treated me like a lunatic yesterday and tried to lock me up in a mental hospital. I never wanted to see his damn face again, but still, I need to go to the infirmary one more time. I need to have a doctor look at Satsuko. I thought about putting her in the dirty uniform laying in the laundry basket, but I had no experience dressing someone, so it would be pretty difficult. I don't have time to be wasting here. I eventually gave up on clothing her and decided to carry her in her bath towel. The clinic was close to Sakuto's house. It'd be way faster to carry her there than call 119 and get an ambulance. I threw the biggest towel I could find over her and prompted her to stand. She's been through so much. Her words sounded clearer than before. She was starting to come back. I cried tears of relief just knowing she'd improved even a little bit. Satsuko turns over so she was laying on her face and then put up a weak struggle to get up on a knee. I smoothly swept her up and put her on my back. The towel I put on her seemed like it was about to fall off. She's got to have, like... I don't know how burns would work. But it's got to be, like, first-degree burns all over. Ugh. Didn't hurt one bit to carry Satsuko. She was light, too light. The lightness actually made me uneasy. Outside, it had gotten hotter, as though eager to attack Satsuko. Frickin' cicadas. Why did it have to choose this morning to get so hot out? Didn't have time to swear at them. The clinic was this way. Hoisting Satsuko on my back, I broke into a trot. Let's go. The hilly road to the clinic, with which I had never had difficulties before, was now torturous. Big beads of sweat formed on my brow, and at some point my breath had grown faint. The hatchet in my belt was heavy and made it hard to walk. I considered leaving it, but I couldn't let it go, at least not while Satsuko's uncle was still breathing. The signboard for the Erie Clinic came into sight, but I quickly noticed something was odd, so I stopped. Several red revolving lights were flashing at the clinic. 3 police cars were parked in a parking lot with their lights on. There didn't need to be much else to inform me something had happened. I didn't want to see Coach, so I had planned to leave Satsuko in the clinic waiting room and give the receptionist a message. But with that police officer Oishi here, I couldn't go inside so carelessly. Oh.
パトカーがいっぱいいますですわよ。
Man, she has gotten her ass kicked. I feel so bad. I gently put Satsuko down in the shade of the thicket.
わからない。様子を見てくるから、しばらくここにいろ。
レディをバスタオル1枚でこんなとこに置いてくなんてなってませんわね。
At least she can still joke.
それだけ悪態がつけりゃ大丈夫だ。
There you go. A little bit of normalcy. I'll be right back, I added, getting to my feet. Cautious of my surroundings, I hid myself behind a car and got closer to officers grouped at the clinic's entrance. I overheard an officer wearing a necktie, probably their leader, and a white-robed doctor having a discussion about something. The doctor didn't seem to be Coach. It was one of those who Coach told to make the tea yesterday.
じゃあつまり最初に見つけたのは朝当番のあなただったと。それでどんな感じだった？
事務室の所長席のソファーに座って居眠りをしているように見えました。
で、机の上に水差しと空き瓶になった睡眠薬があったんで、あなたはすぐに睡眠薬で自殺したんだと考えたと。
Is Erie dead?
それで？
高熱と瞳孔の拡大に重度の意識障害も見られました。睡眠薬中毒の典型的な重症例だと思いましたので。
警察も救急も呼ばずに？
ここは病院で私は医師ですよ。
Come on, man.
生命が危険な状態にあるなら直ちに治療して当然です。
ああ、まあいい。
呼吸が不正常だったので人工呼吸を施しました。合わせて呼吸刺激薬を投与。効果が出なかったので人工呼吸器の準備をし。
ああ、はいはい。それでつまりいろいろ頑張ったけど結局ダメだったと。そういうわけですよね。通報は死んでから直ちに？
はい。救うことができず、とても残念です。
Just then, a radio in one of the police cars started to buzz, producing a broken mechanical voice.
こちら本部。小宮山さん、聞こえますか？どうぞ。
もしもし、小宮山です。ああ、お疲れ様です。睡眠薬での自殺みたいですね。遺書の類はなし。
Suicide? What the heck are they talking about? Someone committed suicide at the clinic. But who? It was definitely eerie. Yeah, I wish Takano-san dead and she died the next day. And yesterday I wish Coach was dead. Then, could he have...
普段から睡眠薬を常用していたとかは？
あまり知りません。
日頃、疲れたとか死にたいとか、そんなこと言ってました？
入江先生は普段からああいう性格でした。
Yeah, Erie was always eerie.
とてもそんな風には。
So I was right. Erie sensei. They were talking about Coach. Coach killed himself. Why would he do that? There couldn't have been any reason he wanted to die. The only reason that came to mind was that I wanted him dead. This world was insane. If I want someone dead, they'd die. That was the kind of world this was. Then what about Oishi? What happened to him? If people really died because I wanted them to, then something should have happened to him too. Maybe it did.
課長からそちらは応援に任せて大石社の捜索に戻ると。
Oh. Alright, well Oishi is gone.
了解しました。
Or lost, I should say.
じゃあすいません。こっちに今応援が来てるそうですから、現場はこのままにしておいてください。おい、行くぞ。
The officers nodded and split up into the patrol cars. Did they just say searching for Oishi's car? Yeah, they lost him. Searching for his car, that meant he had gone missing? Takano-san, Coach, and Oishi. When I wished for it, the very next day, they disappeared. No matter how angry you were when you said you wished someone was dead, it didn't normally happen. Everyone knew just wishing for it wouldn't make them dead, and that's why people could utter such curses so lightly. But the curses I uttered were being granted. At the time, I hadn't even been walking, and yet I heard a footstep. Yeah, that's creepy. And it wasn't only one this time. Tap, tap. They came from behind. And they stood right behind me, reaching a hand for my shoulder. Oh, wait, is that Satsuko? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Must have scared the crap out of him.
驚いたのはこっちでしてよ。いきなり大声を出さないでくださいまし。
It was Satsuko. Her eyes were still unstable, unfocused, but she seemed able to at least walk on her own now. She looked far better now compared to her earlier exhausted
具合
state.
はどうなんだ？もう大丈夫なのか？
まだ頭が痛いですけど、いつまでもこんな格好で表にいられませんもの。
She gave a smile, a show of courage, but her legs were still shaky.
それより、これは一体何事なんですの？今、警察が話してるのを聞いてた限りじゃ。
監督が自殺したらしい。
Satoko was at a loss for words. Her face grew paler and paler, and I could tell she was doubting her own ears.
ケイチさん、それ、本当ですの？何かの聞き間違いじゃないんですの？
確かにそう聞いたよ。入江先生が睡眠薬で自殺したって。
Satoko went down on her knees and broke out in tears. Oh no. She's already dealt with so much, man.
嘘ですわ。監督が自殺なんて、そんなの絶対に。
Now, there's definitely something suspect about it. Like, I don't think he would have. Granted, you could never tell, but still, like, there was too much going on. As I watched Satsuko crying and clawing at the grass, I felt myself trapped by guilt and remorse. I got so angry that Coach was screaming like a madman yesterday. That he had betrayed me, that I thought he'd be better off dead. But even Coach, who to me deserved to die, still misfed people who loved and respected him. Like Satsuko here. In my selfish, egotistical anger, I wished for his death and it was granted. And now Satsuko's crying hysterically as a result. The guilt tore at my heart. I worked myself up to murder her for Satsuko's sake. I decided I wanted Satsuko to be happy. But was that really all it took? Murder meant taking someone's life. It meant making everyone attached to that person sad. In Satsuko's uncle's case, of course, nobody would be sad. So I didn't feel a sense of guilt at all. But Coach's death was different. I had wanted to make Satsuko happy. And that had resulted in me inflicting a deep sadness upon her, hadn't it? But Coach killed himself. It wasn't my... Satsuko still hadn't stopped crying, but she seemed to be a little calmer now. Wiping her tears, she stood up.
すまない。
And the only thing I could think of to say to her was an apology.
どうして謝りますの？
俺、昨日、監督と、喧嘩して、お前なんか、呪ったんだ。呪ったから、本当に死ん
Yeah,
じゃっ
but
て。
there's no way, though. Satsuko looked at me dubiously for a few moments. Eventually, her expression softened, as if she interpreted my words in her own way.
ケイチさんのせいではありませんわ。監督も大人ですもの。自分の命を捨てるに値する都合があって悩んだ末に選んだんですもの。誰のせいでもありませんわ。
She smiled a little, trying to comfort me. And even though she's in like
このままでいたくありませ
so
んわ。
much, even though she's like struggling so much, she's still trying to be supportive. She's a quality friend.
服が欲しい。
いいのかよ。診療所に行って見てもらった方が。
服を着てから見てもらっても別に死にはしませんわ。
Satsuko readjusted her bath towel and started back along the path. Her stride was wobbly and didn't look like she recovered as much as she let on. At first, Satsuko tried to go back home, but it was the time of the morning when people were going to school and to work, so after seeing people walking around, she thought better of it. She must have been pretty embarrassed wearing only a towel.
理科の家に行きますわよ。私の服、どうしたんですの？ケイチさん。
Satsuko noticed how I was hanging my head and spoke to me.
監督はああ見えても大人ですのよ。ケイチさんと喧嘩したくらいで自殺するような人ではありませんわ。
Yeah, no, there was something...
自分を責めるのをおやしなさいませ。
there's something off there. At first I thought it was a coincidence, but with 3 people now I couldn't discard the possibility. There's no such thing as impossible in this world.
この数日、おかしいんだ。
何がですの？
Satsuko seemed to be having trouble breathing, but she still tried to listen to what I had to say.
おとといの綿流しのお祭り。お前は途中で帰ったから行かなかったんだよな。そして、俺は祭りに行って、みんなと遊んだ。
らしいですわね。あの時は取り乱して申し訳ありませんでしたわね。
Satsuko remembered how she blew up at me in the classroom yesterday and bowed to me a little.
実は俺、祭りに行っていないって言ったら、信じるか？
Satsuko looked at me confused. She couldn't help it, of
信じら
course.
れるわけありませんわ。何を今さら。
信じられないだろ。信じられないのは、だって、 俺は祭りに行っていないのに、俺が祭りに現れてみんなと遊んだって言うんだ。こんなの信じられるわけないだろ。
それ本気ですの？
ああ、綿流しの夜からおかしいんだ。いつの間にか変な足音がペタペタとついてくるようになって。
Blood drained from Sato's expression.
足音がペタペタ。
Don't tell me she
そうなんだ。
hears it too.
最初は気のせいだと思ってたけど、ずっとついてくるんだ。多分今もついてきてる。里子の足音と混じってよく聞き分けられないけれど。
Satsuko took a long and hard look at me. Maybe she was doubting my sanity. Coach did the same thing. I mean, why wouldn't he after telling him this? The more I thought about it, the more I was unable to endure that feeling that my hatred for Coach had been meaningless.
綿流しの日、俺は祭りに行かず、あることをしていたんだ。
I was just doing some
ず
late
っとだぞ。
moida.
眠ったり、意識がなくなったりしたことはなかった。だから寝ぼけ気分でフラフラと、記憶になく祭りに出かけたなんてことはありえない。
それはおかしいですわね。ならどうやってお祭りで遊んだんですの？
だから俺は祭りには行ってないんだよ。
No. I can't let myself get emotional. Yeah, you gotta chill, bro. If I get agitated now, that'd be like proving that there's something wrong with my head.
ごめん、みんなが信じてくれないんで、つい。
圭一さんがそう言うなら信じてあげますわ。それで
あの夜高野さんに会ったんだ。それで見下されたと思って俺は心の中で念じたんだ。お前なんか死んじまえって。
高野さんってどことなくそういう雰囲気がございますものね。
Just a little bit.
その気持ちわからなくもありませんでしたよ。
高野さんが死んだの昨日の話だ。どこかで焼け死んだらしい。
それ本当ですの？死んだんですの？
俺が死ねと願うと次の日には死んでるんだ。それから警察の大石ってやつも知ってるか？ムカつく太った刑事みたいなやつ。
Satsuko nodded a little.
警察が話してるのを聞いたんだが、どうもあいつ実は昨日あいつにも死んじまえって念じてたんだ。
I mean, coincidences do happen 3 times in a row.
本当の話ですの？
嘘じゃない。俺だって信じたくないけど本当の話なんだ。高野さんも監督も大石も俺が死ねと念じたら本当に死んでしまったんだ。
For a while, Satsuko was at a loss. Long silence ensued. It is a bit
それは
ridiculous.
怖い話ですわね。圭一さんにせめて嫌われないように気をつけませんと。
それだけじゃない。もっとおかしいこともあるんだ。
Oh, is he gonna mention her uncle finally? Yeah.
お前のおじなんだ。
おじさまの話はやめてくださいましな。
Oh, the panic in her voice, man.
いたんだろ。
Keiichi got chill,
お
bro.
前の家に。
あの人の話はやめてくださいます。嫌なんですの。
ありえないんだ。あいつがいるわけがないんだ。
やめてって言ってますのよ。いや
あの男が綿流しの夜以降、だって
あの男のことはもう
俺が殺したんだ、この手で。
Even the cicadas stopped crying. Finally, he said it. Her face was streaked with tears and stiffened even more as she looked at me in
俺
disbelief.
が綿流しの祭りの夜にお前のおじを殺したんだ。だからお前の家に帰ってくるなんてことはありえないんだ。
He went back, and last night he found fault with the dinner you made him, yelled all sorts of things at you, and then basically boiled you in the bathtub. Messed up, man. That couldn't possibly have happened.
だから俺はあの男を確かに殺したという証拠を確かめるために埋めた。だがそこには死体はなかった。こんなことがあり得ると思うか？確かに殺したのに死体がないんだ。
Because you're at the wrong hole. What? I didn't know you could do that. Do a text log? Oh.
何事もなかったかのように帰宅して
Learn something every day.
お前の前にこんなことがあっていいはずないだろう。
Satoko's entire body stiffened. She was shrinking away like there was someone in front of her about to hurt her.
お前も俺のこと頭が変になったって思ってるんだろうな。無理もないさ。俺だって信じられない。
圭一さんはきっと空前呪った人が死んでしまったんで混乱してるだけに違いありませんわ。監督の自殺にショックを受けて気が動転してるだけなんですのよ。今日はもう学校を休んでお家で休んだ方がよろしいと思いますわ。私はもう平気ですから、どうかご自分の体を大事になさいまし。
Satoko spoke like she understood me, but she also told me to go home. I could see the revulsion in her face and knew that she didn't want to be around me anymore.
サトコをちゃんと診療所まで見送ったら俺も帰る。サトコだってまだ足元がフラフラじゃないか。途中で倒れたら大変だぞ。
私はもう本当に大丈夫なんですね。男の人にいつまでもこんな姿を晒していたくないんですのよ。
Yes, do not sound fine, man. She wobbled up the shrine steps looking like she was about to fall. And I immediately ran up to her and helped her stay on her feet. But then Satoko promptly jumped away from me. That outright rejection hurt a lot. Well, dude, you've been kind of going on about Moida for a while. When she got to the top of the stairs, her breathing was ragged, and she wasn't even looking at me. At this point, I was being ignored. Well, it's more like she didn't want to have anything to do with me. It really was a feeling of rejection. And that hurt my heart more than any blade could have. This was the path I chose for her sake. To be treated like this at the end of it all was just so saddening. No, this was for you, man. It wasn't for her. You never wanted to be repaid in the first place. You didn't do it so that Satsuko would thank you. You did so Satsuko would be happy. And that was what led to this ending. Riki-chan's house was a disaster prevention storehouse used by a town council. We went past it a little further through a shrine grounds. You'd apparently reached the back of the assembly hall. Satsuko was heading there, walking quickly, the gravel under her feet crunching as she went. Oh, she's barefoot right now, too. Ugh. Did she want to get there as soon as possible, or did she want to run away? I couldn't tell. And then I heard the vigorous sound of wings flapping. I turned around and saw a crow. I hadn't seen many crows since coming to Hinamizawa. I saw them a lot in my old town, though. On garbage day, they'd flock to trash collection points, peck through the bags with their beaks, drag out the contents, and have a feast. As I was remembering that, I saw a few crows flocking around the shrine's donation box. And I thought how terrible it was for someone to leave a garbage bag in a place like that. The cicadas quieted. Breathing stopped. Thoughts ceased. Even time came to a halt. I ran over to where the crows were flocking. I ran there in order to drive a horrible idea out of my mind. I definitely hadn't wanted this. There's no way I would ever wish for this even by mistake. This was not. When they noticed my vicious approach, the crows all flapped upwards, fleeing into the sky. Oh, I've never seen this, artwork before, man. That's horrifying. When the crow's big black bodies flew away, they exposed the garbage bag. What had I seen there? Yeah, that is a Rika corpse, if I've ever seen one. It looks so sad too. It looks like she was crying blood. That's fucking horrifying. The scream had escaped from my throat before I understood what I was looking at. I think I already read that twice. It's fine. We're all panicking here. What was this? Satoko came over as well, realizing something had happened. Oh no. Geiji's still holding that axe, isn't he? And she looked over my shoulder, then she screamed as well. This wasn't... The garbage bag was crimson, dyed in fresh blood. Enough this stupid roundabout way of saying it. That's right, yes. It was Rika-chan. Our friend, Satoko's best friend. Always easygoing, clever as a cat, but so cute you couldn't hate her. Our friend, Rika-chan. She was super dead. She was face up, limbless, limbs sprawled, her eyes were like glass, just staring up into the sky. And...
Rika!
Satsuko broke down crying on the sound is horrifying too, man. And yet she still couldn't approach her friend's remains. Crows had gotten through the garbage bag and dragged, well, They dragged out an apple peel and spread it all over. No, crows, they couldn't do this. On the spot, I started vomiting. The sour taste became a bitter one as I threw up over and over again. Rika-chan, her stomach was cut wide open, vertically, completely open. She got Watanagashi'd. Crows couldn't have done this. And from her open stomach, her organs, her bowels were dragged out like children's toys left all over the... Jesus, what a comparison. That's horrifying. That unbelievable sight induced oxygen deprivation in my brain. Color left my vision, a pounding headache, dizzy, and I wanted to vomit. It was like the nightmarish remains of a ceremonial killing. Someone somewhere had killed Rika-chan, brought her here, laid her here with her limbs sprawled out, and then cut open her stomach and dragged out her... Ugh. Red and pink viscera was sticking out of her gut, and her intestines were scattered in every direction, like it had been for fun. The entire ground was covered in an ocean of red and black. A few of the crows had hopped it out around inside that ocean. They walked through the sea of blood, leaving bloody footprints, and those footprints, there were several still left on Rika-chan's body. Those sinister prints made it seem even more like a bizarre ritual killing. I may have wished for Takano-san and Coach and Oishi to die. I didn't remember ever wishing for Rika-chan's death. Yeah, you don't control life and death, bro. I stumbled backwards and stepped on a newspaper. So, like, I knew that part was coming, and I was definitely, like, kind of nervous about it, because I'm like, I know that happened. I remember that being a specific moment in this certain arc. But the way they described it, man, that's just horrifying. That's brutal. A newspaper in a place like this. The newspaper was what was covering my hatchet. I kept it wrapped up and on my belt in order to carry Satsuko. And that newspaper had fallen all... Oh, that's right. Just don't scare me like that. I bent down to pick it up, and then Satsuko looked at me with such disbelief I'd never seen and froze. She was looking straight at me, at the hatchet on my belt. Yeah, she's gonna put two and two together and think that Keiichi did this. Satsuko, trembling madly, backed away. Murderer. She didn't care at all that she was exposing herself through the towel. She just trembled and tried to step back from the demon in front of her. Screaming weakly, Satsuko began to run unsteadily. Run away, that is. Well, yeah. You're holding an axe. Your best friend is dead. The way she ran away, it was so weak, so slow. So if I wanted to go after her, I could have caught up. But if I tried to grab Satsuko's shoulder or something right now, she might actually go crazy. So I had to follow her and try and clear this up. Do you, though?
Takano-sanを殺して、監督を殺して、大石さんも殺したんでございましょう。おじさまを殺そうとして、リカまで。
I mean... Yeah. Well, no, we just killed your uncle, but... 4 other corpses is a bit of a coinkydink.
違う！俺じゃない！俺は殺してなんかいない！
何を言ってるんですの？あなたさっき自分で言ったじゃありませんの。死ねって。死んでしまえって。それでみんな死んでしまったんでしょ？
俺は、その...
That's what you said, bro.
死ねって思っただけで、別に。
自分で何をしたか記憶に残っていないんでございましょう？そんな人の話なんか信用できるわけありませんわ。人を殺した時の記憶が欠落してるだけなんじゃありませんの？いや、記憶がないふりをしてるだけなんじゃありませんの？第一、そのナタは何なんですのよ。
For hatcheting things?
説明してごらんなさいな。
これ。
ほら、ケイイチさんは殺人鬼じゃありませんの。
Yeah, you're not wrong.
どうしてですの？ちょっと意地悪だったけど、楽しくて優しい。
No.
一度は本当のニーニーかもしれないとまで思ったのに。
Come on, man.
どうしてそんな風になってしまったんですの？
It sucks. Like he was trying all of this just to try and like fix everything, and then everything just turned to shit. Like, That sucks, man. I just want them to be happy. Ugh. I might have been able to slowly answer each one of Satoko's questions at a time. But in this situation, explaining my innocence in such a short period of time was impossible. I mean, I didn't even know if I was really innocent anyway. At the very least, I killed Satoko's uncle. There's no body, but I killed him. Without a doubt. At that point, I was far from innocent. And I wished Takano-san, Coach, and Oishi were dead. And that curse of mine was granted. When I wished for Takano-san to die, I didn't think of it as anything more than a normal thing you'd say to someone you didn't like. Then she actually did die, and I realized that if I wanted people to die, they would. And hoping it would happen again, I cursed Coach and Oishi to the same fate. So even ignoring Takano-san's death, Coach's and Oishi's were completely premeditated crimes. Was I a killer just like Satoko said? Was I unable to distinguish between illusion and reality and turned into a demon without remembering it? I think I'm a killer who carried out Oyashiro-Sama's curse? No, that couldn't be. It was impossible. Like you said yourself, like, there was apparently 2 of you running around, so who knows? The very word impossible was impossible in Hinamizawa right now. How many freaking times I've said the word these past 3 days? A lot. Satoko had started crying again and was walking unsteadily. At first I felt like she was still running, but now it was like she was walking away crying from someone bullying her. Oh.
どうしてこんなことになってしまったんですの？どうして
There was an answer to that, and I wanted to know it too. Why? Why had it turned out like this?
ニーニーがいなくなってずっと寂しかったけど、圭一さんが転校してきてくれて、またみんな明るくなって楽しくなって毎日が光ってたのに。
Yeah, she was right. Those days were bright and beautiful. And yet, after that, Satsuko and I shouted the exact same thing. Cicadas were sneering at the spectacle, our strange game of tag. Ah, shut up. Eventually I heard the murmuring of a stream. The forest parted and a suspension bridge appeared. Satoko was crossing dangerously, wobbling as though she might fall at any moment. When I stepped into the bridge, it swayed a lot, causing Satoko to stagger and fall on the spot.
Satoko!
Bro. Satoko shouted, her hatred made very clear. It was sad. If words could cut, then this warmth flowing from my eyes would have been blood for sure.
こうなってしまったんですの。ケンイチさんのこと大好きだったのに。
I wanted to go up to her and give her a hand, but the distance between us was uncrossable. If I got any closer, Satoko would start shouting again, and say things that would hurt me deeply again. So I couldn't approach any closer than this.
Satoko, 俺にもなんでこうなったかわからないんだ。でもこれだけは言える。リカちゃんを殺したのは俺じゃないんだ。それだけは絶対に。
いい加減なこと言わないでほしいですわ。自分の記憶にも自信が持てない人が何を言ったってどう信じればいいって言うんですの。
Fair. I tightened my hands into fists. What are you gonna do, bro? You do nothing. This was mortifying. I wasn't crazy. Hinamizawa was crazy ever since I wandered into it lost on that one night. This insane world where I was at the festival when I wasn't and the uncle I killed was alive. Where death would come just by wishing for it. It was this world's fault. Mion and Rena started acting strange, like they were possessed by something too, and Coach wouldn't believe anything I had to say. And even Satoko, who I should have protected, was yelling at me like this. Was the price for killing a man supposed to be this high? Yeah. Yeah, it is. Was I really going to be forced to stay in such a bitter world? I did the right thing. At least I wanted to. And so then, why? I hated it every time I asked why. The days Satoko and I enjoyed in peace went so wrong.
Satoko, 信じてくれ。俺は人殺しじゃない。
では、そのナタは何なんですの？
For not murder.
納得のいく説明はできまして。
He really can't, because he literally grabbed her for murder.
ナタが怖いのか。じゃあ捨てるよ。それなら安心だろ。
Satsuko didn't nod, but she seemed to be in agreement with that proposition. I clumsily took the hatchet out of my belt and dropped it over the side of the bridge into the stream below.
捨てたぞ。これで話を聞いてくれるな。
武器を捨てたぐらいで気を許すと思いまして。圭一さんほどの方なら 私を素手で絞め殺すなんて簡単でしょうに。
It's so horrifying. It must be so horrifying for her to even like have that be a chance in her head. Like that sucks, man. Like how would ever want to kill Satsuko? You
じゃあ
idiot.
どうしたらいい？両手を頭の上で組んだらいいか？
そうですわね。両手を頭の上で組んで後ろを向いてくださいます。
It was a cunning plan, much like the one she used during club activities. Putting my hands on my head and turning away would mean I couldn't attack Satsuko very easily. I immediately acquiesced to her request, since it would make her feel better.
これでいいか？俺の話を聞いてくれ。
Satsuko stood up, then carefully approached me from behind. And then she actually came right up behind me. She was so close, and yet I was so sad that I wasn't allowed to turn
圭
around.
一さんが悪くないのはなんとなくうすうす分かっていましたわ。
え？
多分あなたは何か悪いものに乗り移られただけなんですの。さっきまでは圭一さんが殺人鬼なんだと思ってたけど、あなたの目を見ていたら
I could hear that Satsuko was still crying, but her voice was gentle just the
圭
same.
一さんが人殺しなんかするわけがない。圭一さんの体を何か悪いものが乗っ取って悪事に駆り立てただけ。
Was she speaking literally right now? Or was she trying to admonish me? I couldn't tell.
思えばひょっとするとあの人たちも圭一さんと同じものに乗り移られていたのかもしれない。あの時は殺されるとしか思わなかったから、そこまでは考えが及ばなかったけど、今ならわかる。あれは乗り移った何か悪いものの仕業だった。
Wonder who she was talking about just there.
何の話だ？
It was less like she was talking to me, more like she was talking to herself, like she was confessing at my
わ
back.
かってるんですの。身に覚えがないわけじゃないんですのよ。
Satsuko's voice started to become mixed with sobs. Her pained voice tore at my heart. But I didn't know what Satsuko was talking
西
about.
部殿の屋根によじ登ったことがありますの。何年も前のことですわ。
Once, when Satsuko was playing hide and seek at the shrine grounds, she climbed onto the roof of the storehouse for ritual implements which everyone said not to go near, and hid. Then Satsuko saw that she could get in through a window meant for ventilation. For Satsuko, the word curse was plenty scary. She was more curious about what was inside the unknown storehouse. She removed the grating on the window, which was already hanging off, slid her small body into it, and climbed down inside. It was too dark to see much, but after descending, she realized just how high up she'd been. Despite the darkness, she could see a few things around her thanks to the faint light coming in from the air window. And to her disappointment, it was just a regular old storehouse. She tried to leave, but the door was locked up tight from the outside, and was made to not open from within. She would have to go back out through the ventilation window she'd come in from, but the window was high on the wall, and there was no way she'd be able to climb back up. Satsuko desperately tried not to cry and racked her brain thinking of a way to get up there. There were a lot of birdcage-looking things hanging by chains from the ceiling. Ugh. She took the hanging chains and strung them along the wall. If she climbed up the bundle of chains, she might be able to manage to climb up to the ventilation window. There was nothing else she could do, but she had to try. And try she did. It was dark and creepy, and she didn't want to stay there forever. The more she thought about that, the more she panicked. She climbed the bundle of chains. Satsuko could hear the clinks and clangs of everything creaking under her weight. And then, just as her hand reached the window, one of the metal fixtures she used to stick the chains on the wall flew off, and the chains all began to pull loudly and fiercely every which way. Spurred on by the sounds behind her, she managed to get back onto the roof from the window. Because of the weight of the flailing bundle of chains, the other fixtures broke. And then one of the big bird cages hanging from the ceilings fell to the floor with a huge noise. Under it was an image of Oyashiro-Sama, his vessel, and the cage took off one of the arms, then trapped some other implements beneath it. It didn't take very long for her to grow scared of what she'd done. The deafening noise could be heard from the rest of the shrine grounds. A few other children heard it and gathered around, and of course, Rika was one of them. Then Rika's father, the shrine priest, with an angry look ran over. And then, as for what happened next, it was painful to remember. The only one who knew where Rika's parents kept the key to the ritual storehouse was Rika. So he scolded her, saying this happened because Rika pulled a prank and hid me in there. He was very angry and menacing. Just looking at him was enough to frighten anyone. He exposed Rika's back, took a strangely shaped ritual cane or something, and struck her with it several times. Aw, man. Rika's words at the time, "It wasn't me. It wasn't me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." That pitiful voice, I still can't get it out of my head. I should have said it was me. I should have said so to save my best friend from that false accusation, without being afraid of Rika's father's terrible temper. Rika gritted her teeth and cried at the crime she didn't remember doing. Ever since then, the world had been strange.
わかってるんですの。これは、お社様のたたりだって。あの時、最後伝を怪我して、親友を見捨てた私への天罰だって。
お社様のたたり。
父も母も、濁流に消えた。意地悪だったおばも死んだけど、誰よりも私を可愛がってくれたニーニーも。そして、圭一さんが転校してきて、やっと楽しい毎日が戻ってきたと思ったのに、今度は圭一さんが取り憑かれて。
It must be terrible feeling like that, man. Like, now she's got nobody.
聞いたの私。お社様は本当にたたりをなすときは本人をすぐに殺さないんだって。親しい人から順に殺して、みんな殺してから最後に殺すんだって。だから圭一さんもたたりにやられて、きっと今度はレナさんやミオンさんがたたられてしまうんですわ。
And they're just chilling at home right now.
殺したり殺されたり、もういいや。
落ち着けよ、サトコ。たたりなんかない。誰もお前をいじめたりなんかしないって。
Oh. When I turned around, I was thrust away with amazing force. Even my hands were awkwardly placed on my head. I couldn't take the fall and lost my balance. I'd been pushed not into the bridge, but to the side. No. Towards the stream. No, this can't be happening. As one last miracle, I was allowed to grab a cord hanging from the bridge. Far below me was the stream. We were pretty high up, and below were rocks of all sizes. If I fell, it clearly wouldn't be pretty. The entire bridge was tilting under my body weight. My frail little grip probably wouldn't last another minute before my fingers had to let go. I didn't understand myself what I meant by shouting her name then. Was I asking her to save me, or was I asking her why she did this? Probably a bit of both, man. Finally, everything came back into focus, and I saw Satoko. And I was surprised at what an odd expression she had. It was the first time I'd seen it. Ooh. It was an expression of righteous anger meant only for those who needed to die. Oh, jeez. Yeah, that is super angry. Like, that is pissed off. That is Madge. Oh. All that she sees Keiichi as right now is just not even Keiichi. Just like some freak murderer. As she screamed, she jerked the bridge to and fro. She didn't have to do that. I was going to fall anyway.
私はお前なんかには負けないんですのよ。たたりなんかに負けてたまるもんですか。お前になんか絶対に負けない。みんなを奪ったお前に絶対に負けたりなんかしない。
サトコ、これだけは聞いてくれ。
Don't know what my face looked like at the time, but it seemed like it was enough to quell Satsuko's agitation.
俺のしたことは確かに褒められるものじゃない。いや、いけないことだったかもしれない。
Now you probably shouldn't have.
だけど、お前に幸せになってほしくってしたことだったんだ。それだけは信じてくれ。
こいつ最後の最後で圭一さんのふりを。
Satsuko didn't seem to have any more desire to listen to what I had to say. For that to happen at the very end like this was tragic.
お前に褒められたくてやったわけじゃなかった。お前に幸せになってさえもらえればよかった。俺たちはダメなんだ。お前が笑っていないとダメなんだ。だから俺が消えたら
Even at the end, he's still hoping that she's just happy,
俺が死
man.
ぬことで新しい生活を迎えたならきっと笑ってくれ。それだけ約束してくれないか。
Oh, jeez.
圭一さんの口調で喋るな。おじろ、落ちてしま
And and those were the last words Satsuko ever said to me. Those sad, tragic, and altogether unrewarding words. What on earth was I? My desire to make Satsuko happy ended up like this. Where did I first go wrong? And what was the mistake I made? When did I make it? Was I the crazy one, or was it Hinamizawa? Even after all of this, I thought I wasn't crazy at all. It was this eerie world that was crazy, this world I'd accidentally wandered into that one night. Because that fun world, where I never doubted all the crazy times we had as a club, would go on forever. It couldn't possibly have transformed into such an abnormal world. That fun world wouldn't have ever ended with this, Satsuko pushing me to my death. In the end, I was going to be swallowed up by this crazy world, and disappear. No, I'd probably already disappeared. Yeah, I think you disappeared on the day you did the Moida, my friend. Yeah, probably. On the night of Watanagaji, exactly. I'm sure then the world I really belonged to, I'd vanished that night and everyone was worried. It was laughable that I'd taken this long to figure out I wasn't around anymore. Oyashiro-Sama's curse on the 5th year was Satsuko's uncle dying and me disappearing. In the real world, Satsuko had already been freed. Me and my friends were all lamenting my disappearance and valiantly trying to get back on their feet. And even though they were down to 4 people... if you're counting Shion, yeah. Oh wait, no, the world you left. Got it. And they would have a good time without me, waiting for the day I would come back. I'm sorry, everyone. I couldn't come back home. But this is what I wished for. It was my wish for Satsuko's smile and my duty as her Nini. At this point, there will be nobody left to torture you. Because Satoshi and I, it took 2 years, but we succeeded. That annoying toothy smile of yours, we wanted to see it one more time. Does it just end there? My pain wasn't gentle or merciful. It was a sharp pain, violent, powerful, and ruthless. What little compassion I had receded in the span of a moment. And now, I could die. I could say goodbye to this insane world. Farewell, crazed Hinamizawa. Thanks for giving me the psychic power to kill people whenever I wanted. If you'll still allow it, I'll wish for one last thing. The death of this very world, of this crazed Hinamizawa. So that nobody would ever again have to find themselves lost here again. What a way to end it, man. That's just rough. Sad. Damn. Like, I wasn't, it's always intriguing, because, like, Rika wasn't really a big part of this chapter at all. But, like, her death at the end is the catalyst that kind of set everything off for, the ending to happen. Alright, let's do this last tip, and then we'll get to the after party. Oyashiro-Sama. Nobody really knows what characters to use to write Oyashiro-Sama. Knowing this is hard partly because depending on the time period, he has been called with various titles with subtle changes to his name and nobody knows the real one. The only thing all time periods agree on is that the 4 syllables O, Ya, Shi, and Ro are always used. There's a theory stating that the shrine, or yashiro, dedicated to Oyashiro-Sama itself became an object of worship, and that people began calling it O Yashiro-Sama or Lord Honorable Shrine. This does make a bit of sense. I don't know whether this is related, but people say the Furude family, the most respected bloodline in terms of worshipping Oyashiro-Sama, actually inherited his blood. And in the legend, the Furude family passes down, if for 8 generations in a row the firstborn child is a girl, the 8th daughter will be the reincarnation of Oyashiro-Sama. If you go by this legend, the characters used for Oyashiro-Sama's name should be O for honorable, Ya for 8, and Shiro for generation. Ah. These character assignments are simply something I've thought up. There is no way to verify it. If this is true, then Oyashiro-Sama would have been named as such under the assumption he would come again. The second coming of an object of worship can be seen in several religions, so this isn't unusual. A few of these religions call second coming of their object of worship a day of judgment, or something along those lines. And you must not forget they mean it to be the end of the world. Rika Furude, pampered and loved dearly by the elderly folk in the village. Rumors say she is the 8th generation, and Oyashiro-Sama. I do not know the family tree of the Furudes, but at the very least, I can confirm that for the past 2 generations, the first child has been a girl. Rika Furude watches over Hinamizawa. If the village were to lose her protection, what would happen? Would peace between man and demon be lost? Would it once again create a hellish landscape where man-eating demons run rampant? A gruesome feast to the demons who suddenly remembered how delicious the weak humans were, who could only cry, scream, and run for their lives. What would that look like? Just imagining it is enough to make my heart pound with excitement. Yeah, that's definitely Takano writing that. She's the only freak who would do that. That's a neat tip to end of that though, man. Like that's saying like, hey, Rika's got a lot more going on. Let's go ahead and save this. On to the after party. Let's have some fun. After all the sad. Oh wait, are we not done? Or are we still are we still going? My head was pounding. The sky was bright. It was cold too. It hurt. Each sensation I felt led to a new and different one awakening. Oh, wait, he's still alive? Oh, shit. When I came to, I was lying face first on a dry riverbed. A few body parts hurt a lot. The skin over a bunch of my joints was torn, turned blue or red, or oozing blood. I could tell it was my bones that were in pain from the agony I felt whenever I moved. I looked up and saw how high the bridge from which I had fallen was. Considering I dropped from there, it was a miracle that I could open my eyes again. Right next to me was a broken, upside-down car seat, which I guess some pranksters had brought here. Maybe this thing had conveniently lying right under me, allowing me to escape instant death. Miraculous. Of course, I didn't know whether this miracle was fortunate or unfortunate. I'd failed to die, and now I was still stuck in this insane world. How long had I been unconscious for? The sun was high in the sky, so it looked like only 1 or 2 hours had passed. My body's sluggishness didn't make it feel at all like so short a time had gone by. Mentally, it felt like I'd been asleep here for a decade. How the hell did you live? The more feeling returned to my body, the more the pain flooded in. It hurt so much it would have been better not to have woken up. I needed to get to a doctor. Yeah, to Coach's clinic. The term Coach's clinic brought memories back one after another, memories I wish I hadn't recalled. Satsuko was no longer on the bridge. She would have returned to Hinamizawa by now, and she would put on some clothes, go to the clinic, get a checkup, and report on how crazy I had seemed. Police were waiting for me without a doubt. This time, would they find for real that I'd killed her uncle and arrest me, or would they just send me to a mental institution like I thought they might? Still, I didn't care which it was. Please, someone stop all this pain. You can boil me or cook me after that, whatever you want. I began to walk unsteadily, just limping along. I went downstream and then through an animal trail-like path in the woods. I walked haphazardly, searching for a path I knew. Eventually, I finally came across a familiar road and set off towards the clinic. Not to my house, but to the clinic, which had treated me like a lunatic. It was hot and humid. There was no wind and the air was stagnant. I'm surprised he doesn't have any broken bones or anything. For a while now, I've been smelling the terrible stench of burned eggs, and it made my face scrunch up. And then at last, I noticed something. I couldn't hear any cicadas. It was the first time I'd heard Hinamizawa be so utterly silent. When I thought back, it seemed like birds always chirped in the morning, cicadas always cried loudly in the afternoon, and Higurashi always rose up in chorus in the evening. Always something to hear. I couldn't hear a single insect. The only thing I could hear was a rustling of the wind brushing the treetops. I'd never experienced this sort of quiet before. I don't like this, man. I don't like this. I thought we were done. Even the only sound coming from the trees lacked life somehow. The trees were yellow and many leaves were spread on the ground despite it being too early for autumn. Even the weeds that had been growing so persistently at the side of the road had yellowed, browned, and lost their vigor. Only the sunlight itself was of the June Hinamizawa I knew, and yet it seemed like the seasons had switched all of a sudden. Looking at the fallen leaves and rotting weeds led me to a spot a few small insects turned on their backs. They weren't moving. They were corpses. I looked closer to see insect corpses scattered all around, like a child had collected them as samples and then strewn them about. The stench, what was it? It was terrible, like burned eggs. Like sulfur, I'm guessing. Combined with all the bug corpses and leaves falling from the trees in summer. Someone sprayed herbicides or pesticides around here? Even at school, we apparently fumigate. They call it pest disinfection or something, once or twice a year. I hadn't run into anybody, despite how bright it was outside. It was mid-afternoon, and yet it felt like I were sauntering about at midnight. Well, with this smell, nobody would want to be walking around outside. Just what was this anyway? There was no sound, no noise, not even a breath. Hinamizawa was silent. The school would come into view right after turning this corner. And yet I couldn't hear any commotion at all. None of the shouts or grunts the children always made. It was simply quiet. Just as pretending to ignore the silence had grown intolerable, I saw the school. And finally I heard something. The sound of a few trucks. There were a few very tall trucks parked in the schoolyard, idling. About 10 workers in raincoats were unloading things from their trunks. It was hot and humid, even my casual clothing. I couldn't imagine how unbearable that must have been. And then I remembered. Our school was rented from the Forest Service field office building, wasn't it? Wasn't strange at all for Forest Service trucks to be doing some kind of work in the schoolyard. Besides, what did forest rangers do anyway? Jeez. Felt bad for them having to work in such heat and with such a stench about. They're taking careful cargo out of the truck and lining up in the schoolyard. There were containers, fairly large ones, inside multicolored patchwork bags. Heavy too, they were being carried in pairs. They lined them up very neatly, like tuna at a riverside fish market. Several dozens, hundreds of tuna were completely filling the fairly wide schoolyard up. Forgot my pain for a little while, captivated with this big forest ranger job I'd never seen before. As I stood there watching in a daze, people in raincoats working on the other side noticed me. One of them pointed me out and they shouted a few things back and forth. Thought they might yell at me for getting in their way, so I decided to leave post-haste. Post-haste. Then 2 trucks drove up behind me. I stepped aside and they entered the schoolyard. Sheets covered their trunks, but I could tell they were completely full. As they passed, there was an awful smell that made me want to choke. It wasn't the same burned egg smell as before, but an even worse one like rotten crab meat. What on earth was it? I'd been shrouded in one terrible stench after another all day. Then certain white letters emblazoned on the side of the passing trucks caught my eye. Brown Self-Defense Forces. GSDF. Self-Defense Forces like the army? Why was the army in my schoolyard?
Oi, Kimi.
Oh, jeez. Suddenly someone slapped me on the shoulders from behind. I turned around and a canopied SDF jeep was parked there. The SDF person had on a green raincoat and a gas mask like in the movies, carrying a compressed air cylinder. He didn't look normal. There wasn't an inch of exposed skin anywhere. I tried to talk. I stretched the wound on my head. Made the SDF people exchange glances. I couldn't see their faces through their masks, but they seemed surprised.
君はHinamizawaの住民か。住所と名前は言えるか。
一応ここに住んでますけど、名前は前原圭一です。あ、住所は獅子骨市Hinamizawa村。
After seeing me tell them my name and address without hesitation, one of the SDF people watching from the jeep started talking into a radio.
本部、応答願います。本部、応答願います。402生存者発見。繰り返す。402生存者発見。場所は営林署入り口前。
This is base. We copy. Secure the survivor at once. What's his
生存者は
status?
健在。全身に外傷を認められるも、自立歩行可能。これより保護し、本部へ送致します。
I was prepared to go along with the police, but the SDF. Couldn't help but think it seemed a little much. They urged me into the back of the jeep. And then they told me to put on this gigantic gas mask. I did so, and one of the troops fiddled around with it, strapping it tightly to me. It was heavy, hard to see out of, hot, and difficult to breathe. Just looking at the world through the lenses made it lose its sense of reality. My breathing sounded like some giant monster through the mask. At this point, I had no idea what was happening. With much trepidation, I asked the trooper adjusting my mask.
すみません。何かあったんですか？
君はどこにいたんだ？何をしていたんだ？
Hey, don't answer a question with more questions. I was the one asking
ずっと
you.
山に入ったところにある吊り橋から河原で多分気絶してました。今日が何曜日かもよくわからないです。
今日は昭和58年の6月22日。
Oh, shit. So he was out for what, 2 days? That surprised me. Sasuke pushed me off the bridge on Tuesday. Oh, so he was out a day. That meant I'd been asleep on that riverbed for an entire
改めて
day.
聞きますけど、何があったんですか？なんで自衛隊が来てるんです？何かの訓練ですか？
Had my question been that difficult for him? None of the troopers would answer me. The one in the driver's seat talking on his own radio turned on the vehicles. He turned the dial and some broadcast station or another came in. So I listened to the voice of a radio announcer I was familiar with.
首相官邸で行われました。記者団からの自衛隊の災害出動が迅速に行われなかったことが前例のない未曾有の大災害に直結したのではないかとの質問に対し、奥野官房長官は次のようにコメントしました。
でありまして、県知事からの派遣要請を受けて迅速に対応したものと思っております。
とこのように述べ、要請を受けてからの自衛隊の出動は迅速であった。そもそも自衛隊の派遣を要請した県知事は、災害発生から前例のない大災害であることをいつ認識できたのか、そして災害派遣要請までにいわゆるお役所的なロスタイムが生じ、被害の拡大を招いたのではないか、今後の究明が待たれています。首相官邸より 報道部の尾形記者がお送りしました。さて、ここでもう一度災害発生からの行政の対応を振り返ります。
There's just so much reading here. Like there's so much exposition, lore dump. In the middle of the night between June 21st and June 22nd, a large-scale disaster broke out in Hinamizawa village, Shishibone. The details have not yet been investigated, but there was an eruption of volcanic gas from somewhere in the Hinamizawa area. The gas was relatively heavy, and as it spewed out, it began to flow. That flow went down along a small river and headed directly into Hinamizawa village. After a few hours, it had covered the entire region. It happened in the middle of the night, 2 to 4 a.m. Every home and household in the village was afflicted. Most of the residents asleep. It is thought that all died without noticing the crisis. The catastrophe striking in the middle of the night caused its detection to come too late. There was still one small opportunity to have noticed it. 3 a.m. A news dealer's shop in Okinawa sent a vehicle carrying the morning newspapers to his branch office in Hinamizawa. Usually a shop would be contacted upon the vehicle's arrival, but this morning that didn't happen. The news dealer's shop made repeated calls but got no response. The shopkeeper sent his eldest son to check on things, but they lost contact with him as well. Oh, that sucks, man.
非常に悔やまれています。この時点で警察か消防への連絡があったなら、事態はもっと改善されていた可能性が高いでしょう。少なくとも村全滅という惨劇は免れた可能性があります。
Residents in areas in the same region began continuously calling 119 to report the smell of rotten eggs, dizziness, nausea, and headaches. The fire department received the same reports, all from the same confined region. They speculate a truck loaded with chemicals may have gotten into an accident and reported it to local police. 6:30 a.m. Contact was lost with a patrol call on duty in the Hinamizawa area after the officer reported the smell of rotten eggs. The local police considered the possibility of a large-scale disaster involving highly lethal gas and reported it to the prefecture and prefectural police at 7:15 a.m. 8 a.m. The governor was traveling to nearby prefectures for inspection, so in accordance with regulations, the prefectural environmental disaster prevention chief was provisionally escalated to Director General and set up a disaster countermeasures office. However, without contacting the governor, the countermeasures came too late.
近年、市民団体によって指摘されていますが、議員待遇者との視察旅行は完全に親睦を目的にしたもので、主演三昧だと噂されています。近い筋の話では、知事は徹夜で飲んだくれて、泥酔状態で就寝していたそうです。環境部長から電話があった時も泥酔していて、全く取り合ってもらえなかったのだそうです。
And so the authorities, in the hour or so it took for the governor to grasp the situation and sober up, did nothing but accumulate
知事は意に
information.
及びませんが、知事不在時には本部長を務めることになる環境部長にも怠慢の責任が問われるでしょう。また、県としても大災害を想定したマニュアルが用意されておらず、対応が常に後手に回ってしまったのが致命的でした。
9:12 a.m. On the advice of the prefectural police, the governor requested a disaster relief mission from the SDF. By the time the chemical defense unit, equipped with protective equipment, arrived on the scene, 8 hours had already passed since the incident's
とにか
outbreak.
く深夜の就寝中というのが不運でした。同じ災害でも日中に起こっていれば全く違ったでしょう。
Yeah, people could have evacuated. All households in the Hinamizawa village were wiped out. There were over 1,000 victims. Holy shit. The SDF is still confirming the situation on the ground, but the results are predicted to only increase that
ス
number.
タジオにはゲストとして火山性の災害にお詳しい地学博士の藤原先生にお越しいただいております。
火口部に限定して申し上げれば決して珍しいことではありません。火山大国日本にはたくさんの活火山がありますが、それらの火口部はいずれも危険なガスの噴出する危険性があり、一般登山者も火口部周辺には立ち入らないのが一般的です。
It's crazy that that's actually like a thing.
では今回、南沢村を襲った卵のフラン臭のするガスというのも火口部では一般的なガスということですか？
卵のフラン臭という特徴から、おそらく火山ガスの中でも事故例の多い硫化水素によるものだと考えられます。
南沢村は火山の火口部とは全く縁遠い場所にあるわけですが、そういった火口部でない場所にもその硫化水素が発生することがあるのでしょうか？
It seems weird that it would just affect them.
詳しいことが分かっていないので、まだはっきりとしたことは申し上げられませんが、外国の例で温泉の地下のマグマだまりからガスが噴出したという記録があります。極めて希少な例ですが、必ずしも火口部でなくても発生の可能性はあるということです。
先生、ありがとうございました。今、防衛庁から発表があった模様です。防衛庁の森川さん。
はい、防衛庁です。先ほど防衛庁はHinamizawa村ガス災害の主原因となった火山性ガスについて、陸上自衛隊科学学校での分析の結果、二酸化炭素と硫化水素の混合ガスによるものだったと発表しました。
Would that have actually came from a volcano?
そのガスは依然として噴出を続け、周囲に拡大しているのでしょうか？
No, this shit wasn't from a volcano, man. Something else happened. Sus.
現在、Hinamizawa村で救助活動に入っている自衛隊第9師団の報告として、ガスの濃度は徐々に薄まりつつある。ですが依然、Hinamizawa村地区は危険な状態にあることには変わりなく、今後も注意深く監視を続ける必要があるようです。
防衛庁から報道部の森川記者がお伝えしました。続きまして、避難を余儀なくされている沖宮地区住民の模様をリポートします。現在、避難所の一つとなっている下篠崎小学校に報道部の現地記者がお伝えいたします。
何ですかそれ。
Inside the jeep, clambering and bouncing along the rough road, none answered my muttered question. An unprecedented catastrophe had destroyed Hinamizawa in a single night. Where was Hinamizawa village anyway? Someplace deep in the mountains, right? Names of places I heard about on the radio were always like that. They're all places I'd never heard of, much less knew the locations of. Wiped out? That means everybody's dead, bro. Don't they usually say how many died and how many were injured? How many people were alive? Just you. Where'd everyone evacuate to? Eventually we came into view of Coach's clinic. For the first time, I saw the flag of Japan hanging on a pole outside. Japan's circular sun hung down as though exhausted. Many SDF tents were set up in the clinic's big parking lot, and many strict security vehicles were parked there as well. When they saw the jeep coming, men in white clothing and gas masks came running out of the clinic, frantic, carrying a stretcher.
もう大丈夫だよ。具合は歩けるかい？
歩けます。
Because of my ows, they forced me to lay in the stretcher anyway. People who seemed like doctors were looking at me and notifying others of my condition via radio.
外傷多数。骨折もしくは内臓損傷の可能性大。頭部に大きな裂傷。瞳孔正常。眼底に出血なくも脳内損傷の可能性は否定できず。
And then from the clinic entrance, people lying on stretchers were brought outside to replace me. Judging by their clothing, they were from Hinamizawa, and that's how I knew they were victims. They brought the stretchers in front of a truck. Two troops holding shoulders and legs like some kind of baggage picked them up and threw them into the trunk. Man. Is it gonna be somebody? It's don't tell me it's somebody. Like, we all know they're all dead, but watch it be somebody he knows. Yeah, in the trunk of the truck, people's bodies piled in heaps. They're just like baggage, and that told me they were already nothing but shells. At that moment, I remembered all those colorful sacks filling the trunks, and them lined up in the schoolyard like a fish market. Hundreds of empty shells. Corpses. Corpses, 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 corpses. Corpses.
バカ！犠牲者を粗末に扱うな！彼は村の住民だぞ。
The troops carrying the sacks answered with a humble salute. The world didn't need this insane version of Hinamizawa. My final wish. That's right. Yeah, I forgot he said that. Oh man. It was granted. I didn't understand anything anymore. None of it mattered. I wished I cursed and then it happened the next day. Then please, tomorrow morning, let me die. That insane night is still going on. Please, please end it already. Jeez.
おい、意識が損失したぞ。
Oh no, he's just
患者
like...
の名前を呼びかけろ。早く。
Did he just give up? I don't think anybody even knows his name. Oh yeah, they do. That's right.
聞こえるかい？聞こえるなら瞬きでいいからしてくれ！前原君！前原君！前原君！
Suddenly the world didn't matter to me anymore. I wasn't interested in their
呼
cries.
吸が停止したぞ。気道確保。人工呼吸。絶対に行かせ。畜生。畜生。もうこれ以上死者はごめんだぞ。死んでもいい命なんかないんだ。殺すな。殺すな。
I hear the voice of a man crying and screaming in my ears. Nobody deserves to die. Those words came from his heart. They were so commonplace, and they soaked into my heart too. Maybe it was a mistake to take someone's life, even if it was to save Satsuko. If this is the price I had to pay, this horrible tragedy, then this is a little much, Oyashiro-Sama. Why did you never punish me? Come to think of it, Satsuko said something. Oyashiro-Sama's actual curse never goes for the targets at first. It kills everyone they love before that. Oyashiro-Sama's curse. It was a convenient excuse I told myself at the very end. That wasn't my curse that destroyed it, but Oyashiro-Sama's. Given that I was in a stretcher, this next bit might have been obvious. But last of all, I realized one thing. Yeah. Today, I had not heard those footsteps following me, even once. And now, I was liberated. As the cries of the Higurashi I couldn't have been hearing filled my mind, their tearful ensemble was the only funeral march I had. And June 22nd, 1983, early morning. A widespread disaster occurred in Hinamizawa village, Shishibone Prefecture. Volcanic gas erupted from Mangafuchi Swamp, one of the Hinamizawa's area's water sources, and spread through the entire village. There are 1,200 victims. 20 have gone missing. The catastrophe was unprecedented, forcing local governments to evacuate approximately 600,000 people. Holy shit. According to later investigations, magma pools and hot springs were uncovered directly under Mangafuchi Swamp, and the gas that gushed from it was determined to be a cause of the disaster. In addition, directly after the incident broke out, many came forth claiming this disaster was a curse based in Hinamizawa village legends, first sparking a wave of chaos. There are apparently local legends of a curse spreading a miasma, destroying the village, and some scholars believe a similar gas disaster may have happened in the past and remained part of those legends. More extreme periodicals suggested this was an extension of the string of freak death incidents that had been happening in recent years in Hinamizawa village, stirring interest in theories about this curse of Oyashiro-Sama. In addition, relatives of those in Hinamizawa village who had escaped the disaster complained of sickness afterward and were hospitalized. Some of them even died of unknown causes, further encouraging such extreme opinions. On top of that, several relatives professing to be possessed by Oyashiro-Sama's curse committed suicide in strange ways. And the impact the disaster has had on the entire nation can no longer be ignored. Wild visions of terrible toxic gas sneaking around in the middle of the night, killing people spilled across the country, causing a steady stream of people complaining of insomnia, difficulty breathing, headaches, dizziness, etc. Some who identified themselves as being obsessed by it began doing odd things. Most of these were mistakenly attributed to the tabloid press. But afterwards, some even began to call the mental issues arising from the Hinamizawa tragedy the Hinamizawa syndrome. The Hinamizawa village region, the object of all kinds of rumors and speculation, is currently closed off, and even flying overhead is prohibited. Oh wow. The prohibition was, at one point, undone as a result of a decrease in the gas's density. That autumn, another gas burst was confirmed, leading to the area being cordoned off. Oh wow. Word is that the area is sound asleep, all traces of former life intact and left to rot. Jeez. Only one survivor remains. Keiichi Maibara, age whatever, who lived at Black. At the time of rescue, he had some trouble breathing due to fluid buildup in his lungs, but as a result of life-saving procedures, he was kept alive. He's currently in General Hospital somewhere in the prefecture. The press have been asking for him for some time, but all interviews are being refused. What did he see in Hinamizawa? What happened between June 21st and June 22nd in Hinamizawa village? They he remained silent, unwilling to speak of it. Great Hinamizawa Disaster in Memoriam List. Oh. Oh no. No, it's everybody. Oh my god. Went missing. Oishi went missing during investigation. Eri, Rika. So those were all the ones we knew. And then it's just the next day. Yep. Ah, they put her name as Reina, not her real name, Rena. Mian. All the Sanzakis. Satsuko. Teppei. Went missing, died. Oh no. Shion committed suicide on the 27th. Oh man. The extreme mental disorder disaster ongoing. He refused all. Oh man. Well, Keiichi's living his days in peace. God dang. No wonder why this was such a long one. Like, I feel like this part, granted, well, it is. So, like, it's, like, part of... I just feel like this one's just an ending. Which, you know, this is the last, I guess, like, question arc that they have. So it makes sense. Because the other ones didn't have credits. But we watched them, man. We watched them. I'm guessing they don't have the after party for this one, because that was kind of a wrap-up. But if they do, I'm gonna skip it. I think that would kind of take away from the from what just happens. But man, this is such an excellent freaking story, dude. It's an amazing story. There's so much to it. Oh, what more? 2003? Dang, that's a jump of like 20 years. An elderly couple living in Osaka Prefecture discovered a cassette tape while organizing the possessions of their son, who passed away 8 years ago. Their son went missing when his fishing boat capsized in 1995. He was 47 at the time of his death. 8 years later, in 2003, they began to organize their son's remains in order to organize their minds, and came across the cassette tape in question. From 1975 to 1989, the deceased had experienced working as a journalist for a photography periodical, and the tape is thought to have been created during that time. Oh, the label on tape read 11/28/1983 Keiichi Maibara. Oh. He was the only one to actually do an interview? It's thought the tape was recorded during an interview with Keiichi, the only survivor of the Great Hinamizawa disaster that occurred in June of 1983. As the only person who lived through the disaster on the night of June 21st, shrouded in mystery, many interested parties attempted to question him. They never once spoke physically to anyone in a public place. Therefore, the tape caused quite a stir, possibly being of extremely high value. Click.
なんだか録音されてると思うとすごく喋りにくいですね。
気にしない気にしない。ほら、こうすれば録音してるのも気にならないでしょ。
After this, sound quality dramatically decreases. Do you cover the recording device with
じゃ
something?
あ始めるね。まず最初の質問から。圭一君はあの大災害の夜どこに？
神社から裏に抜けてずっと林道を進んで吊り橋があるんですよ。山に入る少し前にそこから落ちて気を失ってました。
それは大災害の夜、つまり21日から22日にかけての深夜のこと？
いいえ、21日の火曜日の朝です。それで次の日の昼間に目を覚ましたわけですから。
どうしてそんなところに？誰もが持つ疑問だけど、当日は平日で、しかも落ちた橋は君の家と学校からは大きく離れているよね。
Listen, man, there was just a lot going on.
ざっくばらんに言って、君が大災害の発生を事前に知っていて、村から逃げる途中に吊り橋から落ちたんじゃないかっていう声があるんだけど。
Of course, people would be conspiracies about that.
勝手なことを言わないでください。
私も随分ひどい言い分だと思うよ。気を悪くしないでね。さて、次に圭一君が落ちたという吊り橋なんだけど、地図で言うとここだよね。神社の裏から林道を抜けて至る吊り橋というのは。
多分、俺もあんまり行かないところなので、自信はないですが。
そんなに行かないところに、どうして平日の朝に行ったのか。
Does it really matter at this point? Well, I guess so, because he's the only one who is from there.
という河原なんだけど、実はそれはありえないという噂は知っているかい？
Being impossible.
ありえない。また。
Jeez, you're impossible again.
また。まだ。
For a little while, Keiichi mutters the word impossible several
どう
times.
してありえないと？
火山ガスが発生したのは鬼ヶ淵という沼なのは知ってるよね。それで学者の先生が緻密な模型を使ってシミュレーションをしたら興味深いことが分かったんだってさ。例の火山ガスってのは空気よりも重いらしくて、地形に沿って低いところへ低いところへ流れ込む。それで発生源の鬼ヶ淵沼からそういうガスが噴出し、どれくらいの時間をかけて 村を覆うのか実験がされたんだ。そしたらさ、君が気絶していたという河原、流れ込むんだよ、ガスが。
よく言ってる意味がわからないんですが。
I think he's trying to say you should have died from the gas.
つまり、君が本当にこの河原で気絶していたなら、君は丸一晩、猛毒の火山ガスの中にいたことになるんだよ。だからつまり、君がここで気絶をしていた可能性は否定されたわけさ。もっとざっくばらんに言うよ。私はね、君が嘘をついているんじゃないかなって思うんだ。君は大災害の時、安全なところに身を潜めていて、ガスが薄れた頃合いを見計らって村に現れて、自衛隊の人に保護された。
That's not something he tells Survivor. Like, that's messed up. Plus, he had like broken bones and like internal damage and everything.
どうかな？図星かな？
For a short time, the journalist presses Keiichi further in a teasing way, but all that can be heard are heavy sighs.
仮にそうだったとしても、俺は今更驚きませんけどね。
驚かないとはどういう意味だい？
Was this recording really taken of Keiichi? Some heart are suspicious. Suspicions, not suspicious. You said it before, didn't you?
あのひなみ沢ではありえないことなんていくらでも起こるんです。死んだはずの人が生きてる。そんなこと珍しいことじゃないんですよ。まさか俺自身が死んだはずなのに生きているってやつを立証しようとはね。
The reporter's like, bro, this is awkward. Now I'm just gonna laugh. The journalist and Keiichi both laugh for a while. To verify its authenticity... Oh. To verify its authenticity, I had the others in the Maibara family check the tapes with his voice in it. However, the sound was not clear and much time had passed, so the relatives I checked with couldn't remember what he sounded like. I was unable to gain positive proof it was actually his voice.
あの大災害がHinamizawa連続開始事件の5年目のたたりではないかという話についてはどう思う？
いや、それはないですね。5年目のたたりは俺ですから。
え？何のこと？
何のことって、あんたの話に対する答えですよ。
Doubts also remain regarding date 11/28 written on the tape.
まあ、言っても信じないでしょうけど、俺が起こしたんです。俺がね、こんな村、丸ごと死んじまえって願ったから。
そりゃ、豪快な話だね。
豪快？そういう面白い言い方もあるんですね。高野さんも俺が殺したし、監督も大石も俺が殺した。
After Keiichi Maibara's failed attempt on a certain August day, 2 months after the disaster, he was diagnosed with a mental disorder and transported to a treatment facility.
あの時の俺にはね、何か神がかり的な力が宿ってたんですよ。
So I guess this is when he was in that facility, or it should be.
例えるなら、足音かな。
足音？ってなんだいそれ。
あんた、足音を聞いたこともないんですか？
He's like, bro, you dumb? You haven't heard footsteps before?
ひたひた。あんたも今日からは歩いてるとき、不意に立ち止まってみると面白いですよ。
Still, they never allowed any news coverage, so it's extremely unlikely that a tape from the media dated after August 1983 would have his voice on it.
それでね、自分がちゃんと立ち止まったにもかかわらず、足音が一つ気をつけた方がいいですよ。
そうだね。気をつけるようにするよ。
そんなに俺、面白いこと話してますか？
Imagine being like 20 years after this disaster and you're hearing this for the first time, like this was a real thing. That'd be horrifying.
あんた、さっきからヘラヘラと笑ってばかりですね。
However, the reporter had been criticized for his forceful methods of collecting data while he was active, so there's still a possibility that he broke into the facility and forced Keiichi to talk.
監督と同じだ。俺のことを同情したり話を聞いたりしてるふりをしながら、その実人のことを異常者扱いしてる目だ。
そんなことはないよ。
いや、俺にはわかるんです。あんたの目は監督と同じだ。あの日以来、もう足音は聞こえない。
Is this truly Keiichi's voice? The authenticity of this recording is still wrapped in
だから俺
mystery.
にはもう、あんな恐ろしい力は残ってないだろうけど。
I freaking hope
こ
not.
こでもう一度、あんたの死を願ってみるよ。俺に不愉快な話ばかりをする。あんたの死を。
Well, he didn't die right
そう
away.
だな。今回は一つ。
I swear, if he says on a boat, because didn't it say he died on a boat or
高
something?
野さんは焼け死にだったから。
Oh no, and he did drown in a boating accident. What the fuck? Bro. What?
ってのはどうだい？絶好調だった当時の俺なら、次の朝までには必ず死んでる。
15 years after this tape was created, the reporter, just as Keiichi had predicted, died in an accident out on the sea.
さてあんたは何日後に水で死ぬかな？
Oh, that's horrifying. That's terrifying. Oh, I feel so bad for him, dude. That's horrifying artwork, though.
気をつけろよ。俺ごときに
Oh,
た
jeez.
たり殺されるな。
That's freaking terrifying, and I hate it so much. Oh, I hate it so much. That's horrifying. The recording ends in the middle of Keiichi's laughter. And Keiichi Maibara, late on the night of November 30th, 1983, 2 days after the interview, he suddenly died from a high fever, cause unknown. Records remain of the strange words he kept giving after pressing the call button the day before he died. An extra set of footsteps. Oh.
また一つ余計に。
Did you start hearing them again? That's taking so long to fade. Why? Why would you do the baby laughing at the end? Messed up, man. That's messed up. Why would you do that? Creepy ass babies. Bro. All cast review session. Listen, man, we're already pushing like 3.5 hours for this, so that was just insane. I didn't know all of that stuff had like extra stuff existed. That was so cool to see, but also horrifying at the same time. It's very sad. But man, that was some crazy stuff, dude. Like, I can't wait to keep this going. Like I said, this is sorry, like 3.5 hours. Wasn't expecting all of that at the end. This was a very, very long chapter. Apparently, the tatarigoroshi is the longest one, so that's why it took so long. So I'm gonna skip the after party for now. But if you do want to see the after party for this, let me know in the comments. And if anybody wants to actually see it, I'll actually like record it and do a little extra video with just the after party before the next chapter comes out. But for now, thank you guys for watching. Like, this, especially if you watched the whole part today, like, dang, that's a lot. Thank you. If you don't already, subscribe, like the video and all that fun stuff. I'm just gonna go be sad. And, yeah, look forward to the next part. Chapter 4 is, I forgot the name of it off the top of my head, but it's a shorter one. It's like an interlude. I'm just gonna be releasing that in 2 parts. I think, like, each video will be long, probably about this length, but I figured it's 2 parts, make it easier. Yeah, until next time, you guys, just keep being kind to each other. Bye.